jazz.
But I trust you, right? So if we were to do like, okay, if it doesn't go through, it's no big deal. We'll just take care of it later.
Right.
But if you're doing it, with a third party or someone you don't know, or at a merchant, right? Like, are you really going to walk? Is he really going to walk out of there? Is he really going to let you walk out of there with stuff if the transaction didn't confirm yet? Because how is he going to get you back if it doesn't?
You're right. That's always a little tougher when you don't know the person. So. And
I agree that silver is generally accepted. I don't think I think more about the Liberty Dollar when I think of silver. And despite the fact that I have Liberty Dollars somewhere and was a big fan of the company, the method to circulate it could probably be deemed a little bit sus.
Did you hear about the second attempt at making that a thing they used an ERC-20. His son did it. Let's see, that was Bernard von Nothaus, right?
Bernard von Nothaus was the original proprietor of the Liberty Dollar.
Right, and his son, I think, Extra, did a ERC-20 that was representative of 1 ounce of silver.
Okay, I don't know what an ERC-20 is.
That's an Ethereum token.
Okay, I may have heard about that because one of my emails, I'm still on the mailing list, so I may have gotten something like, "Hey, we're relaunching the brand," right? But the original Liberty Dollar, when you got your Liberty Dollar, they said like, "This is how you circulate it." Mm-hmm. You go to a merchant and you just hold your hand out there with the Liberty Dollar, and you wait for them to hold out their hand, and then it was called the drop. You just drop it into their hand.
Yeah.
And they feel the weight of it, like, ooh, this is novel and unique, right? But it was a specific. It was like an ounce of silver, stamped at an MSRP higher than the melt value of the silver.
Yep.
So at one point in time, silver was like $26 or whatever, and this 1 ounce round was stamped at like $50.
Yep.
And so you drop it in the merchant's hand, and they go, ooh, 50. And then they give you change for 50, right? So if you're you got 26 ounces of silver, they're taking it for 50, and then giving you change, right? You're kind of robbing them.
You kind of are, yeah.
Or it could be seen as though you were robbing them. And from the Liberty Dollar perspective, it was like, no, it's just a barter token. Doesn't say American currency. Doesn't say, U.S. coin or whatever. It didn't have any of the terminology. It was just preying on the ignorance of like the minimum wage cashier at wherever you were making your purchase from.
Yeah.
And then it was for the owner to then sort it out after the fact and realize that maybe he got burned a little bit. Yeah. So there was a little, however you want, if you were trading with someone who knows silver and you go like, this is an ounce, right? And it's stamped with the Liberty Dollar, and you go like, well, I trust the Liberty Dollar, then you just take it as an ounce for whatever you're buying.
Yep.
And when they closed out the Liberty Dollar, there was another branch that formed called like the American Open Currency Standard, which was like, I want to say like a little bit of a license. So they had a whole bunch of silver mints that could use, that you could trust if they were stamped with the American Open Currency Standard, that their ounce of silver was indeed an ounce of silver.
Uh-huh.
And you could, as a merchant, you could like sign up with the American Open Currency Standard and get your site listed so that that wherever you are, if they're on the list, then they will take silver as far as trade is concerned. And if you were trading an ounce with the American Open Currency Standard, then you didn't need the test kit, right? Because it was a trusted network.
Right.
But all of that kind of like petered away. And my interest petered away too. Like I was, I never was wealthy enough to collect gold. But I did occasionally have extra money to buy silver. And as soon as, Bitcoin became a thing, I was like, okay, like I don't think I bought an ounce of silver since.
Really?
I
still like silver.
I don't dislike and gold too, but I'm with Richie Rich at times. I think Bitcoin might have a little more value to it at times.
Like the Captain Kickass, I still talk to him online, even though he's not on the show. And he was excited, that the Goldbacks had new denominations for the new Florida Goldback that's coming out, and he bought a set of it. So, just to complete his collection. And I was like, every time I think about getting Goldbacks, I go like, this money's better off in cryptocurrency. Yeah. And so I don't buy any of the Goldbacks. That's why I don't buy silver. I go like, if I'm trying to like get banged for my buck, there are better alternatives. And I'm not I'm not a diversifier.
Right.
Like I'm a maximalist.
Yeah.
Bitcoin,
I think, still holds the title as the best performing asset in the history of the world, or something.
Yeah, and so if that's the metric, right? Why would this is not investment advice, but why would you put your money in anything other than like the best performing asset?
Right.
Unless you're hedging, right? And go, well, maybe I'll put. But the problem with people when they hedge is they put they hedge by diversifying into like garbage coins.
Yep.
Right.
I've made that mistake many times.
Okay. If you're going to diversify into gold and silver or something else, but they go like, no, I got a diversified portfolio. I've got all these crap coins and a little bit of Bitcoin.
I always try to invest in coins that made ideological sense to me. Projects that I thought would do some good for the world.
Okay.
And I would have always done better just holding Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Dash works better.
And Dash definitely works a lot better than Bitcoin.
If you want to spend it, there are a lot of coins that work better than Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, then treat Bitcoin like a savings account, then, right? Yeah. And when you need to go shopping, right? You transfer what's the transfer some of your Bitcoin into convert. That's the word.
Yep.
Convert some of your Bitcoin into Dash, right? Go shopping, and then that's it, right? You don't have to hold it in Dash. And with the value of Dash at the time, you just used it instantly.
That's right.
And I was called, early on several years ago, I was called like a bad activist because I'm like, I don't want to spend my cryptocurrency. Yeah. And they went, well, you just spend it then you buy more and you replenish.
You didn't have to. I spent all mine.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Hey, no problem, man.
But, we know I'm not going to name the bad activist, but it turns out that he was a bad activist in the end. But still, right? Like if it's just an extra step, if I'm going to like spend cryptocurrency and then go spend Federal Reserve notes to buy back the cryptocurrency I just spent, right? Yeah. That's just an extra step and misery in my life. I'll just spend the dollars that I have liquid already.
Yeah, that definitely makes more sense. And I guess the argument is now that Bitcoin is they say it's a store of value now, and that
that's fine,
and that it's fine that it doesn't spend easily. But I disagree. But
as you said, there are other spendable tokens. Right. Just spend those when.
But it also defeats the purpose of Bitcoin in a way too, because Bitcoin was supposed to be a peer-to-peer cash system.
That's right. That's what it was originally supposed to be, and it's diverted from that, which I wouldn't be okay with if it were the only coin. But since there are other coins, like Richie says, I'm okay with it, and as long as I have the ability to swap into other coins.
Well, and those other coins came, with a purpose and a reason as well, right? Like the whole reason they forked Bitcoin was because of the network congestion initially, right? Like the blocks are too small.
Well, the Dash fork happened is it was originally called Darkcoin, and it's just because they wanted to add a mixing protocol.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, like Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV. Yeah. Right, like the actual forks of Bitcoin itself was like, the block size is too small. We need to figure this out. The transaction costs are too high. This is not feasible, and so they forked.
Yep, and Bitcoin Cash is still doing fairly well as a project, and it still moves better than Bitcoin most of the time, but it does have its problems here and there.
Well, move as far as transactional, or move as far as like profitability?
Quick and easy transactions.
Yeah. Yeah, so you have your bank, you have your wallet, which is like your own personal bank account with your Bitcoin in it, and then you convert as needed, just like you would go to an ATM, right? You go like, oh, I need Bitcoin Cash for this, and I go like, oh, I'll just convert some Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash, and then Bob's your uncle, you go spend your Bitcoin Cash and convert back as needed.
I have noticed, I don't know if it's necessarily a political signaling, but it seems like it to me, this trend in various vendors that accept crypto and the ones that will take a whole list of coins but won't take Bitcoin Cash specifically.
That's interesting.
Yeah, probably political.
It's probably
some motive against whoever, the proprietors of Bitcoin Cash and whoever originally forked it. Like, that's not the real Bitcoin.
Yeah,
because that was a big deal when it first happened.
It went both ways too, because the guy who was selling the most and best Bitcoin miners, the Bitmain company, he was a big blocker, and so he went with Bitcoin Cash, and he would only sell those computers for Bitcoin Cash shortly after the fork.
Which is perfectly fine. Like, if that's, if that's the way you want to run your business,
I saw
fine with me. Yeah,
but it got a lot of people really worked up.
Let them, right? Like there's thousands upon thousands of coins, and I've had way too many people come up and talk to me about like which one the next big thing is. Mm-hmm. And I go, all right, I hope it works out for you,
right?
And then I just keep stacking what I can, and convert as needed, right? Like
Yep, I like the dollar cost average. Buy a little bit just on a regular basis, whatever you can afford.
I'm also just not on the exchanges, so I don't do any of that KYC stuff. So it's a little bit more difficult to DCA into it. I buy in bulk at infrequent time periods when I have extra cash laying around.
Mm-hmm. Yep, probably easier to find cash buyers here in New Hampshire than it is in a lot of places too. But
yes,
there are other cities that have a decent crypto scene. Phoenix does all right, and I wish Salt Lake could do better, but they have a small community going on.
I don't even know of anybody who would sell me Bitcoin for cash in Salt Lake.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess I never really tried that hard, but I did use a Bitcoin ATM there one time, and I remember I was so chafed at the fee that I put in $100, and I should have got half a Bitcoin, and I only got 0.27 Bitcoin.
That is a big fee.
That is a huge fee. Yeah.
Still well worth the price in today's terms.
Absolutely. I know as I was doing my show prep, I came across the headline, and when I clicked on it, it was a video. So I didn't bring it in because it's not something we can read, and I don't want to play it on air. But it was the in Hawaii, Bitcoin is starting to take off. Apparently, like there's more places accepting it there.
Well,
but it was like a news, a local news clip. So I didn't watch the clip, and it wasn't a written article, so I didn't bring it in. But it's taking off elsewhere as well.
Well, competition in the money world, as far as being able to spend different things at different places, I think would only benefit all of us. More coming up after this. This is Free Talk Live. Call in at 603-283-6160.
Americans everywhere are enjoying their Sundays after successfully completing Mother's Day in less than 20 minutes this morning. Dads were able to wrap up breakfast in bed by 9:18 a.m., giving them plenty of time to mill about the garage for the rest of the afternoon. While children who spent a minute and a half this morning hugging their mothers are currently out playing street hockey. And after completely fulfilling their Mother's Day obligations with a store-bought card, teens are now free to leave and spend the day with their friends. The moms, who were quickly and efficiently lavished with cards, flowers, assurances of love, and 7 full minutes of family togetherness, praised the competency with which the holiday was carried out.
Oh, it was great. Charles and the kids made me feel completely appreciated, but they ended the holiday before I even got out of bed. Guess I'll go water the plants now.
But before the day-long celebration concluded early this morning, moms had their own job to do, making a brief, obligatory phone call to their own mothers.
This is the Onion News Network.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher. More than 70 million Americans are under winter weather alerts as a huge winter storm is forecast to bring the heaviest snowfall and coldest temperatures in over a decade. Much of Canada and 30 US states from Kansas to the East Coast are affected, according to the National Weather Service. Snowfall of 6 to 12 inches is expected from Ohio to Washington, D.C. States unaccustomed to severe cold, including Mississippi, Texas and Florida, are expecting freezing conditions. Forecasters say it's being caused by the polar vortex, an area of cold air that circulates around the Arctic, sweeping down through Canada. The man who drove a pickup truck into a crowd in New Orleans on New Year's Day had visited the city twice in the months before the attack, according to the FBI. Shamsuddin Jabbar also travelled to Egypt and Canada in 2023, though it's not yet clear if those trips were linked to the plot. Lisa Carton reports.
Investigators said while U.S. Army veteran Shamsuddin Jabbar likely acted alone, they're still trying to determine if he met with anyone while he was abroad and if the trips were connected to the attack. Jabbar also reportedly traveled to New Orleans twice before the attack and took video along Bourbon Street. In the hours before, authorities also say he placed multiple improvised explosives around the city and set a fire inside the home he was renting nearby. The attack killed 14 people, and Jabbar died in a shootout with police after he opened fire on them and the crowd. I'm Lisa Carton.
Monday marks 4 years since the January 6th riots in Washington, D.C., when supporters of then-election-losing President Donald Trump stormed the Capitol trying to stop a transfer of power being formalized in Congress. The events led to the deaths of 5 people, including a police officer. And at the movies, Mufasa the Lion King has taken the lead at the box office in the first weekend of the new year. Scott Carr has the details.
The prequel to Disney's Lion King earned over $7 million just on Friday and is now among the top 15 earners of all the domestic releases of 2024.
The circle is broken. There will be one Lion King.
As Sonic the Hedgehog 3 slows down to second place but has surpassed $170 million in North America. A fourth installment of the Sonic franchise is already underway at Paramount, as Wicked continues to draw crowds, now with a shot at reaching the $450 million mark domestically. I'm Scott Carr.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. This is talk radio that you control. Give us a call, 603-283-6160. You can talk about whatever you'd like to on this program. That's the point of it. And tonight in the studio, you've got me, Stu.
Riley.
And Richie Rich.
And I'd like to thank Machine 3125 for being an amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that they went to amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Thanks to Machine 3125 and everyone who supports us. Again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. Tonight, we have been chatting so far about, well, we were talking about Slab City and the guy named Wizard, who is certifiably insane.
And so is everyone else in Slab City,
and is
apparently.
In charge of the place full of other people who are also certifiably insane. I wonder by what metric he judged that everybody there is in fact insane, or if it's just because you'd have to be insane to actually hang out in that place.
I wonder if it's because you have to be insane to hang out in that place, because, you know, economy run off of water and cash and weed sounds like a weird economy to me.
Yep.
Like, where do they get what service do they provide to the outside world to have an influx of cash to trade or weed? Right? Are they growing it themselves? Do they do enough locally to sustain an entire economy?
I'm sure there's some import-export and as well as, you know, manufacture of goods. Like,
unless you're growing your own food, right, that's going to be an import. Right. And where are you going to get the cash to keep buying outside food from if you're not exporting something?
Kind of a harsh territory, too.
Yeah.
You might raise chickens, probably not going to do so well with, like, sheep.
Well, if anyone from Slab City is out there or knows anyone from Slab City, call us at 603-283-6160.
Speaking of which, we're going to go to the phones to the fun right now. We've got Cadu in Connecticut. Cadu, you're on the air.
If you're in the first chair, does that make it the Stu Dio?
Does that make it the what?
Oh, man. That gets like an immediate drop for a terrible dad joke. But luckily, I'm not in the first chair.
Yeah, I like dad jokes, so you get a pass there.
Did you? You know what? I like about half of them, but then the other half, it just. I hate life when I hear them.
Oh, that's the point of it. You got to embrace that feeling and enjoy it.
I know I can't.
They're purposefully cringe.
There's a good cringe and a bad cringe. I hate to de-lighten the mood to mention this, but I wondered if you guys covered the story of the prison, the prison inmate who was killed at the correctional facility by the correction officers. Did you see that? It was like a brutal killing.
I have not seen it. I don't know if it was covered last night.
We didn't cover it last night, so
no, it doesn't ring a bell. Is this recent?
It also sounds like a pretty typical story. Like I've heard this more than once. So this one is obviously more recent than others.
So this was at some, I forget the name of it, but some New York State correctional facility.
Okay.
And it was all captured on video. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I tend to think everything that I see on TV is fake and question the validity of everyone. Question the validity of everything. But this one didn't make my BS meter go off. It looked pretty real and it looked pretty bad.
Okay. Did they give a reason why he was beaten? Was it just, just because the cops do those things?
The guy's name is Robert Brooks. I don't think he probably had a very good history. I think I heard that in the past he had maybe stabbed someone or tried to stab someone. Something like that. But in this video, the brutal video, this guy's handcuffed, hands behind his back. There's like 13 of these guys. And there's even like a nurse right there, seeing that they're doing this, and they're kicking this guy, punching him, trying to break his neck, basically sticking a towel in his mouth. Just like you see everything. So viewer discretion is advised to anyone who does watch the video. If you go to the YouTube channel Long Island Audit, he's a First Amendment auditor. He does a whole video about this topic, and he even goes to the correctional institution and is asking questions and has some interactions and is talking to the people who are currently working there now.
And this all happened on camera, so that either they didn't think it was going to get out, or thought that they would be immune from any sort of prosecution if caught, or was this like a hidden camera that they weren't aware of? Actually,
I think there's apparently kind of a culture of corruption that they've got going on there.
You don't say.
And I think what I heard was they were under the impression that their body cameras were off, and I think most of theirs were, but for whatever reason, maybe like one or two of them weren't. And
I wonder if this is a case of somebody breaking rank, getting fed up with all of that,
Yeah, the one good cop.
Yeah.
Yeah, could be. He left his cam on purposely.
I was thinking that too, but then I wondered, he's also going to be getting in trouble then if they do get in trouble for, being there and not stopping it to some degree, right?
I mean, did he participate?
Well, it depends how you define participate, because,
Did he hit the inmate?
No, I don't believe so, but he is still in that room when like 800 people are. It's a small room, and you know what I mean, to be doing nothing while somebody's getting killed. I don't know. I mean,
I understand. I mean, if someone's getting like beat up by a gang and you're like, you're filming it, you generally don't have an obligation to intervene. especially because intervening is likely going to turn those 8 people on you, especially if you're breaking ranks, right? So maybe the wisest course of action is like, hey, let me get this on video and leak it, right? And then, take the punishment or whatever. But hopefully if that was his plan all along, that the punishment wouldn't be too severe for not intervening when 8 other people are beating somebody up.
Yeah,
I'm with you. It could have been like a little bit of conscience was like poking through, and maybe one of them felt just like they had to do at least something, not nothing.
And that something is like also keeping himself safe from getting a whooping, right? And also highlighting the problem within the corrupt system. So,
anyone who tried to stop these guys, trust me, like watching the video, would have been punched in the face or something. There's no way.
Yeah. So I wouldn't hold them too high a standard. Like, oh, you did nothing while these guys were getting the butt kicked. If the something that you did was film it so that they could be prosecuted and brought to justice later.
So anyway, I think that this was a pretty big story, but I don't think it has gotten big to the levels of those, like ones that you hear about, like George Floyd. It hasn't, ascended to that level, but I think it's will be more known about. And also the fact that it hasn't ascended to everybody knowing about it right away. Also, in terms of the conspiratorial angle, that also makes me think that it's not another reason to think it's not a fake thing. The fact that it's not like, oh, all of a sudden everyone's talking about it. It's like people are talking about it, but I don't think like it's at that level yet, if that makes sense.
The irony about it too is on this show often we talk about the police having no obligation to protect, and the Supreme Court rulings that hold that to be true, and how that affects whether or not you have citizenship within the political boundaries. But the one exception to that is where they do actually have a positive obligation is when you are in custody.
Yeah, that's right. If they put you in a cage, I don't know how they're ever going to justify that they're not responsible for your well-being at that point.
And so this is clearly a violation, even by their standards.
Yeah.
Like the one time where you have to keep someone safe and protected, and you fail to do so and perpetrate against them in such a violent manner.
Are we really surprised that the police are not protecting anybody?
No, but again, by their own standards.
Right.
Where they go like, we have no obligation, citizen, we have no obligation to protect you. Right? If something bad happens to you out on the street and you call the cops and nobody shows up, well, that's the price you pay for living in a civilized society.
Yeah.
Except when we handcuff you and take you into our custody, then we absolutely have an obligation to protect you.
Yeah.
And then they do this.
Yep, that's right. There seems like a lot of prices you pay to live in a civilized society, I guess.
Yeah.
And not that it really matters what the reason was, but just by watching, like, somebody like really, really had it out for this guy, and got everybody to cooperate with the fact that he had to be dead. This was not somebody pissed somebody off in the moment and then it escalated to something bigger. Like they wanted this dude totally dead from the start, you could tell.
Maybe he had evidence that would incriminate Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, that seems to be a hazard to your health. Well, that's a horrible story, and I wish these things weren't so common. Thanks for the call, Kadu.
The other thing real quick before we move on is like there was another story, and I forget where it was out of, where they passed a law that in order to get the body cam footage from cops, it's now going to cost you like hundreds of dollars just to obtain the footage.
That's absurd.
I saw that story.
You saw it? Okay. Do you remember where it was from, off chance?
I could easily find it again.
Okay, yeah,
Maybe
don't worry
we
about
can
it.
talk about that tonight.
Yeah, but either way, like they'll perpetrate, they'll harm you, and then like, well, now you got to get the evidence, and it's going to cost you hundreds of dollars just to prove yourself right and them wrong.
Yeah.
So another layer of them hiding what the bad stuff that they do.
I guess that just means carry your own camera now. We've got another caller on the line from Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland, Ohio, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
It's a boy, the evolutionary capitalist.
So not from Cleveland, Ohio. If it does in fact
exist. I'm not in
exist.
Cleveland right now. I'm a man of the nation. I have the right to travel. I'm a sovereign citizen of California and therefore the United States.
By
and
that,
I can travel and call wherever and whenever I want.
If you say so.
But anyways, that's a silly obligation to give the government to guarantee the safety of everybody. Of course, it's only fair that they only guarantee the people in custody.
No, it's part of the definition.
That was the deal, man. I didn't make the deal. They did. They said it's an exchange.
They never
allegiance
made that
for protection.
What? That's the
definition of citizenship.
You're conflating.
I'm not conflating. I grabbed their legal definition.
Let me finish.
I grabbed their legal dictionary and I read their definition.
This is Free Talk Live, not Interrupt Talk Live, right?
You clearly called the wrong show. This is always Interrupt Skeeter when he runs his mouth with dumb stuff.
You're conflating the legal term of... There's a legal term of obligation, right? That's when you're liable for when you fail to do something. You're conflating that with protection, right? That's where the conflation is.
There's no conflation.
This is where the
I reject that premise.
There's a obligation means something totally different in civil court when you're liable for something happening, right? It is absurd to put the responsibility of everyone's safety on the government to guarantee their safety. That means if you get robbed, you could sue the government. You know how silly an obligation that is to put.
I don't even disagree that it's silly, but that's their term.
Yeah,
that's their rules.
I don't disagree either.
They didn't use obligation. They didn't use obligation when they said a duty to when they were talking about protection, right?
It's an obligation of allegiance in exchange for a duty of protection. They have the duty to protect, and when they have that duty to protect, the exchange is that I am thereby obligated to be in allegiance with them.
So essentially, the government or the so-called government is violating their agreements.
Right, because the Supreme Court has said there is no duty to protect. They don't have to do it.
And they were talking about duty in terms of a civil obligation, in terms of a guarantee of your safety, right?
Well, even if they were capable, I wouldn't take the deal. I'm not interested.
Hold on. When you call the cops, they will come out, right? But that
not necessarily.
They should guarantee the outcome of what happens.
If you call Domino's, they'll come out.
That's what they're talking about when they're talking about a duty to protect. When in all these Supreme or whatever court rulings that you're referencing, right?
So if they don't have a duty or incapable of performing that duty, then I don't have an obligation to be allied to them, right?
No,
they have failed their duty, and therefore I have no obligation.
You're conflating.
I'm not conflating. It's their terms. It's their language.
It's obvious right on its face. Because even if they were interested in doing so, they're not competent to do it.
Even the Supreme Court ruling used the terms. Right? The Supreme Court has determined that we have no duty to protect.
Duty?
What?
Yeah. And you know what that means? An obligation to guarantee the outcome of protection.
Then don't put it in the definition.
In that instance.
It's their definition.
That's not the same. Never mind. This is not what I really want to talk about. First, I wanted to also correct you on the Jones plantation because Bonnie cut me off last week. First off, that slave who got caught, right? He not only was trespassing, but he wasn't killed because he left, right? He was killed because of seditious speech, right? I don't know what rules they set on that plantation, but it still has no resemblance of what we're living in currently. Even if you try to make a case that that's kind of like what happened to Roger Ver, and that's not a good analogy of what happened to Roger Ver. He violated the rules when he left the country, right?
All right. Listen, I haven't seen Jones Plantation, and a lot of the listeners haven't seen it either. And you're really losing people with this topic. Do you have anything interesting you want to talk about? Or
never.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely
so, anyways,
not.
This is not really what I want to talk about either. I wanted to talk about ideal money because you guys are talking about money, right? Silver is not money anyway. It's not, and it's definitely not ideal. And Bitcoin isn't ideal anyway. Do you guys know what money is? Do you really?
A medium of exchange.
Really know.
It's the singular I. It's mon-I.
No, it's not a medium. It's not merely a medium of exchange, right? It's an evolutionary coordination mechanism, right?
I don't know.
I don't even know what that means.
It's God to most people.
What's an evolutionary coordinating mechanism?
Instead of interrupting, maybe I'll get to it, or maybe in the next sentence.
Or next week, perhaps.
An evolutionary coordinating mechanism.
Wait till week 3, because I am not.
Or week 4.
No, because I'm back on week 4.
Oh, okay. What about next month?
It's an evolutionary coordinating
What does that even mean?
in order to maximize productivity.
Answer Riley's question. Right? What does that even mean? What is an evolutionary coordinating mechanism?
It's a way to distribute property and capital so that you maximize productivity, right?
Then it's not. Then that's not what money is.
Yes, it is.
Money may be used for that, but it's also just used for exchange.
So look at why an economy gives you money, right? It's because you were productive in the past.
But I don't have to. I don't have to be productive to get money.
Well, with an ideal money system, you do have to be productive. When you have privacy built into a money,
no, I don't.
You can be unproductive and attain
because
money.
I could go like, "Hey, Dad, can I have $20?"
That's right.
And he goes, "What did you do for me?" And I went, "Not a gosh darn thing. I just want $20."
And guess what?
And then he goes like, "Oh, here you go."
I said it. And what was the condition I said that in order for it to be productive, it has to be an ideal money, right? So if your dad gives you money, and
so if I go, "Dad, hey, can I have 20 ideal monies?" And he goes, "What did you do for me, son?"
There's no way.
And I go like, "Not a gosh darn thing,
you
Dad."
Can have some less ideal
and he
money.
goes like, "Here's 20 ideal monies." I still get it.
Yeah, and guess what? If
I don't want to guess.
Right.
I'm done guessing.
You're going to have to get your thoughts together better than that so you can present what you're actually talking about and give us a call.
Bye!
Next time. Thanks for the call, Skeeter. That guy's a lot of fun, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. Lots of fun. At least we got him out of the way.
Anything can be money, and it's just a medium of exchange.
I agree.
Fundamentally.
Coconut shells could be money.
I once worked with a girl from Palau. It's a tiny little like Micronesian nation, and I'm not even sure it's in Micronesia, so forgive me if that's incorrect. But she had a necklace, and the necklace was like a rock, and she was showing me her necklace, and goes like, "In my country, this is money." And I went, "Cool," like that's insane to me, but cool. If they're like trading rocks, and there's another story about another nation where like their entire currency is a giant rock, just one giant rock, and the rock never moves. And they just basically like exchange ownership of the rock whilst trading other things.
Oh, interesting.
It's like a big NFT rock.
Oh.
Right? The rock stays where it is, but sometimes Steve owns the rock, and sometimes Jeff owns the rock, and sometimes Bill owns the rock, depending on their other interactions throughout their day. Right? But the rock is there, and that's the money, and that's where it is.
Yeah, however they gamify it to get themselves to where they get along and don't kill each other.
I don't really care, right?
Yeah.
But it's not efficient money or eternal. What the word that he used?
Ideal money.
Ideal. It's not ideal money, right? But that's what they use, and it works for them. And who am I to tell them otherwise?
I wonder if Skeeter's aware of human societies that have no concept of the use of money at all, such as the sand bushmen in
I don't even know if Skeeter's aware of like sunlight and fresh air.
Yeah, might not be just straight basement.
I mean, he is in California, so fresh air may not be something very common to him.
It was more of Mom's basement joke, but
yeah, that's true.
Appreciate the clarification, Riley.
Well, I found that story we referenced earlier about. This is from State House News Bureau.
Reputable news source.
There you go.
Very reputable.
You're yawning over there.
Media and the public will have to pay up to get video of police body cams under new Ohio law.
Ohio. Hey, that's where Skeeter was calling from.
Yeah, that's right. Cleveland. I'm sure he's actually there, too. Police agencies...
That presumes he has friends like across the country, and I just can't wrap my mind around that either.
I mean, maybe he has friends somewhere, but I don't know if he has that many.
I'd like to not spend too much time thinking about Skeeter.
All right.
Police agencies will be able to change members of the public and the media, or charge members of the media and public $75 an hour for body cam footage, dash cam video, or surveillance video inside jails under a law signed Thursday by Governor Mike DeWine.
Screw that guy.
Yeah, that's what I say. Screw that guy in the neck.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, they're supposed to be... well, we already know they don't protect us.
They have no obligation. No duty.
They steal money from hardworking people to supposedly do their jobs. They film the public or whatever. And now we have to pay them again to get the footage for court. This is absurd.
Yeah.
Body cams were a psyop to begin with. So
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. They're just a way to make the police look like they're being accountable, but we all know they can turn off their body cams.
Well, and also to dissuade the public from filming themselves, right? Like, I don't really want to be in a society, I know we're almost there already, where like everyone's wearing a body cam. Like that's not ideal for me.
And not ideal for me either, but might be more ideal than...
But the idea was like, if the cops are doing something nefarious, you would film.
Right.
Right. Or like people were starting to film the police, and we started to see more of these police interactions go haywire. When we're like, man, the police are getting out of control. It's like, no, they've always been out of control, but now everyone has cameras.
That's right. Now you just see it more.
And then the cops went, you know what? We'll take care of the cameras. We'll wear our own body cams.
We'll just wear our own body cams and we'll be more accountable. No,
yeah, you don't have to film us. We'll film ourselves.
Yeah, well, now these good old boys in blue want you to pay them $75 an hour for that footage.
Right. So now just start filming them again, and don't worry about their body cams.
Yep.
Exactly.
Some groups representing news media and citizens had urged DeWine to veto the provision, which had been added to the recent bill, which was known as the Christmas tree bill during lame duck. Whatever that means. I guess that's like when everybody's sleeping, that's the bill they passed.
No, the lame duck is basically when a politician is no longer eligible for re-election.
Oh, on his
they
way
basically,
out,
on their way out, they do nefarious things because there's no repercussions anymore.
Yeah, so Biden's the lame duck right now.
Hooray, democracy. We're going to a break, and we will be back. Give us a call. It's 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
The Shire Free Church offers a sanctuary to those seeking an escape from state churches.
The Shire Free Church is an interfaith, diverse group of people that may not share identical theological beliefs.
As a member in or minister of the Shire Free Church, you are a sovereign individual and may be the faith of your choice.
We don't claim to have all of the answers.
We are open to all peaceful people.
We want to learn from each other.
What unifies the Shire Free Church and its diverse members is peace,
love,
and liberty. There are many paths to God, one for every individual.
The Shire Free Church does not define a specific path beyond these parameters that must be your foundation.
Peace as your way.
Love as your guide.
And liberty as your light.
Learn more at church.shiresociety.com.
That's church.shiresociety.com.
Should you be able to earn an honest living free from senseless government interference? The Institute for Justice thinks so. That's why we've spent years defending hard-working men and women from pointless government regulations. Nationwide, IJ has created opportunity by reducing government power, but there is still more work to be done. Visit our website today at ij.org. Let IJ take care of the government so you can take care of your business.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher. More than 70 million Americans are under winter weather alerts as a huge winter storm is forecast to bring the heaviest snowfall and coldest temperatures in over a decade. Much of Canada and 30 US states from Kansas to the East Coast are affected, according to the National Weather Service. Snowfall of 6 to 12 inches is expected from Ohio to Washington, D.C. States unaccustomed to severe cold, including Mississippi, Texas and Florida, are expecting freezing conditions. Forecasters say it's being caused by the polar vortex, an area of cold air that circulates around the Arctic, sweeping down through Canada. The man who drove a pickup truck into a crowd in New Orleans on New Year's Day had visited the city twice in the months before the attack, according to the FBI. Shamsuddin Jabbar also travelled to Egypt and Canada in 2023, though it's not yet clear if those trips were linked to the plot. Lisa Carton reports.
Investigators said while U.S. Army veteran Shamsuddin Jabbar likely acted alone, they're still trying to determine if he met with anyone while he was abroad and if the trips were connected to the attack. Jabbar also reportedly traveled to New Orleans twice before the attack and took video along Bourbon Street. In the hours before, authorities also say he placed multiple improvised explosives around the city and set a fire inside the home he was renting nearby. The attack killed 14 people, and Jabbar died in a shootout with police after he opened fire on them and the crowd. I'm Lisa Carton.
Monday marks 4 years since the January 6th riots in Washington, D.C., when supporters of then-election-losing President Donald Trump stormed the Capitol trying to stop a transfer of power being formalized in Congress. The events led to the deaths of 5 people, including a police officer. And at the movies, Mufasa the Lion King has taken the lead at the box office in the first weekend of the new year. Scott Carr has the details.
The prequel to Disney's Lion King earned over $7 million just on Friday and is now among the top 15 earners of all the domestic releases of 2024.
The circle is broken. There will be one Lion King.
As Sonic the Hedgehog 3 slows down to second place but has surpassed $170 million in North America. A fourth installment of the Sonic franchise is already underway at Paramount, as Wicked continues to draw crowds, now with a shot at reaching the $450 million mark domestically. I'm Scott Carr.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, growing frustration in Europe over Elon Musk's continuing interference in the continent's affairs. Over the weekend, he kept up a blitz of messages over his social media platform, targeting the government of Keir Starmer in Britain for more criticism, even going after a politician long considered a Musk ally, Nigel Farage of Reform UK. He's also sown chaos in Germany, where the richest man in the world is aggressively promoting the far-right AfD in next month's elections. How should European governments respond?
It's a very hard question to answer because there's almost no precedent for it.
Arthur Snell is a former British diplomat and host of the podcast Behind the Lines.
We've certainly got lots of case studies of countries where we have bad relations being perfectly prepared to, say disobliging things about us. But Musk is, let's not forget, he's got a government role. He might be the richest man in the world and everyone knows he's a big businessman, but he's got his own role in Trump's government, the Department of Government Efficiency. We've seen lots of people in this country already say that Keir Starmer or someone in the UK government needs to formally respond. The issue there is that no one wants to annoy Trump in the phase where Musk appears to be right inside his inner circle.
How long will the bromance between Trump and Musk last? We don't know, but it must definitely be coming under strain. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
Our main news again. More than 70 million Americans are under winter weather alerts as a huge winter storm is forecast to bring the heaviest snowfall and coldest temperatures in over a decade. The man who drove a pickup truck into a crowd in New Orleans on New Year's Day had visited the city twice in the months before the attack, according to the FBI. And Monday marks 4 years since the January 6th riots in Washington, D.C. And that's the latest feature story news. Kate Fisher reporting.
Retail giant CVS is gearing up for floods of customers seeking the perfect meaningless piece of crap for their office gift swap. The company is making no secret that when it comes to wasting the obligatory $20 on a useless electronic dartboard or pretzel maker for someone you couldn't care less about, CVS is your best option.
Our incredible selection of worthless shit is just the thing that nobody wants. We guarantee you'll find nothing personal or unique in our store.
The company is offering massive discounts on otherwise unsellable items for holiday parties you don't even want to go to, like the $12 decorative lantern, which is expected to be a big hit with customers who grab the first thing they see when they walk in the store.
I really wanted to get something that said, I don't care about any of you people and I didn't put any effort into this.
CVS also has Hanukkah gifts for coworkers who you think might be Jewish, like candles and those little plastic net bags full of chocolate money.
This is the Onion News Network.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. Live Sunday edition. Starting the second hour. And I'd like to let you know that Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny Liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. And in the studio tonight, you've got me, Stu.
Riley.
And Richie Rich.
And tonight we've been talking about different things. We've gotten a few callers.
We talked about police charging people for body cam footage for whatever purposes they may want it for, which is absolutely absurd, Mr. and Mrs. America, because here you're allowing the so-called police to pretend to protect you, and now they're charging you for that footage.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying.
They're raping America.
Don't bother. Just film them yourself.
Exactly.
Right. Let's go
Save
back to
yourself the
everyone
money.
filming the cops.
Film the police.
Post it.
That's the
put them on blast.
Yeah.
Defund them.
Exactly. Don't pay for the footage. Film the thugs yourself.
Yep. Don't rely on them to do the job that you want done.
Now, if it happens to be like inside a correctional facility where you're not allowed to film, right, and you're relying on them to film when they're beating the Jesus out of another inmate, right? Well, not much you can do about that.
Unfortunately, not.
That relies on, like, you know, the good deeds of a turncoat amongst their ranks to come forward like Serpico style.
Yep.
Is that an old reference? It's an old reference.
Well, I don't know. I would imagine things get a little messy when you got a dead inmate body on your hands anyway.
I'm sure that would be very messy.
No, not if they close ranks.
Well,
right? That's like the thin blue line within the thin blue line.
Provided the inmate has somebody on the outside that cares about them. They could pay the $75 an hour for the footage of this horrible incident in which these jailer thugs beat a man to death.
But if they're not filming it or they don't have the film and they go like, no, he died, heart attack, the prison doctor signs off on it and they cremate the body so you can't do any testing afterwards.
Yeah, and then they NSA the footage. Oh, we lost it.
Or they don't have it, right? If someone didn't have the body cam on and they just closed it up or went around the corner where the cameras don't see, right? There's always a blind spot somewhere.
Yeah.
And you do it there, right? And then all you got to do is get rid of the evidence and like, oh no, the prison procedures and policies we cremate upon impact.
Yeah.
And then there's nothing to investigate.
Yeah, well, I guess
you just shake your fist at them.
This
till the revolution.
Slug of a governor went ahead and signed the thing in during the holidays when nobody was looking, and he's on his way out.
Well, that's what
total cowardly move.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's what these cowards do. Is they want to hide their cowardly acts in acts they call the Christmas Tree Act or whatever they want to call it, and just hide their stupidity. And people don't really care because who cares if you have to pay for body cam footage? It's just part of doing business with the government.
And who cares about the inmates, right? Oh, they're in there for a reason.
Exactly.
They're probably bad people.
That's what people believe, is everyone in prison deserves to be there.
Yeah, I think that stigma is slowly, and too slowly in my opinion, but slowly wearing off as the incidents of somebody you know and love being locked up into the very same cage.
Well, and that's the unfortunate part about it, right? Like I'm not on social media so much anymore, but at one time I was. And I had I'm going to call him a friend because we met like outside of his profession, but he was a detective with the Honolulu Police Department. So like my one cop friend, right? And every time I would post, something about like a bad cop, or we'd have a discussion about a bad cop and the cop's doing bad things, he would always say, well, that's just an isolated incident, right?
Well, there are more and more isolated. Yeah, there are more and more isolated incidents every single day, though.
Well, and that was the point. So then I just went on social media, Facebook, and every time I posted, that's a bad cop story, I would tag it with like just another isolated incident, and and that was it. Like look at this enormous amount of isolated incidences.
Yeah, but
and there's an
one
entire
cop goes out and creates 5 different victims in one day. Are those all
isolated
five
incidents?
different isolated incidents,
right? But now there's like a subreddit, if you're on Reddit, devoted to all of these isolated incidents. Right, it's like the bad cop no donut subreddit.
Yep.
It's just bad cop story after bad, isolated incident after isolated incident, daily, multiple times a day, across the country,
it's absurd.
Across the world. It's absurd.
The profession in and of itself has become corrupt, and it's corrupting the people that enter into it.
Yeah, and then they slap terminology on things to make it fully acceptable to society.
Oh, absolutely.
They had a word for this in Germany. It was called Amtssprache, where they make things into bureaucratic speak, so that instead of like, you're shipping a train full of humans, they'd call it they'd call it something bureaucratic sounding like living cargo or just
human resources.
Yeah, human resources is a great example.
We're
the
just
Department of Defense.
We're just moving human resources around. Nothing to see here, folks.
Now, you said, Riley, that it becomes corrupt. Do you think that at one point it wasn't?
The profession of policing?
Yeah.
I'm sure at one point in American history, there were people who were interested in protecting the individuals and not engaging in corrupt behavior.
Okay. Well, then I feel obligated then to remind you that the general understanding is that the police force itself was founded as an offshoot of the runaway slaves patrols.
Okay.
Like the entire system of policing was fundamentally founded on catching runaway slaves, and that seems like a priori, axiomatically corrupt from the beginning. And just progressively has gotten worse as they've gotten more power.
Yeah, and if your moral conscience is going to allow you to take a job as slave catcher, I don't think embezzling a little money on the side is going to give you pause.
But we're all peace officers back in the day engaging in trying to capture runaway slaves. That's my question.
Well, no, obviously, because they ended slavery, but then they just went on patrol. Right now, they're the primary role is road pirate.
Okay.
Right, they hide in the bushes and they rob you if you're going too fast or if you accidentally roll over the lane a little bit, the lane marker a little bit.
Yep, highwayman.
The highwayman, that's fundamentally where they derive the vast majority of their revenue. There's no money to be made in like catching murderers, right? Where how do you make a buck if all you're doing is catching murderers all day and rapists, right? That generates no income.
Yep. So I grew up listening to Louis L'Amour books, and for those who aren't familiar with Louis L'Amour, he's a Western writer, and he's written a lot of Western, and he likes to depict a lot of Western peace officers as good people wanting to keep peace in communities. And maybe that was true in a lot of places, but I also know that in many of his stories that the police themselves have also gone to corrupt, and they're corrupt government officials. So I don't know.
Yeah. When the richest man runs the town of 80 people, right, and pays the salary of the sheriff, guess who gets to get away with stuff?
The richest man in town.
The richest man in town.
This is why I think it comes down to the issue of power. I don't think it's the profession itself, but then again, the profession might have something to do with it. But it always comes down to power. People with power become absolutely abhorrently corrupt. It doesn't matter what position of power it is. It could be a leader in a church, it could be a police officer or whatever. The power absolutely corrupts people.
It also attracts the corruptible.
It does.
Because they know once they get that power, they can behave in a manner that they wouldn't be able to behave otherwise.
Right. If there are uncorruptible humans, we probably would never know because they don't put themselves in those positions.
And they wouldn't want to.
Right. They're just too busy doing honest things in the world to even get themselves caught up.
Those that really can, like, ply their trade in the free market, where they can make an honest living doing so. Mm-hmm. And those that cannot, right, seek the pedestal of power so that they don't have to make an honest living and can work off the livelihood of others.
Yep, I see the draw, but I also see all the destruction that has caused.
And I think it's Milton Friedman. They interviewed him, or maybe Murray Rothbard, one of the two. I forget. Find it. But they were asking him, like, wouldn't you want like good people to enter the government? Like, no, I don't want them in the government at all. The government will like stifle any sort of goodness and creativity and anything that they have in them. I want them in the free market.
I think
where they can ply their trade. And
I think Friedrich Hayek also, was it Friedrich Hayek or Friedrich Bastiat that also rhetorically asked if these politicians and people were made of finer clay, and of course they're not. They're just like you and me. They're just people with titles. They put their pants on one leg at a time.
Or they have their slaves do it.
That too. They go to the bathroom like we do. They pretend to have these magical keys or whatever, but they don't. They're just people with absolute abhorrent titles and expect us to bow at their feet and say, yes, master, we'll do what you tell us to.
They certainly do put on a good show as far as all the trappings and pomp and circumstance.
But they don't die like the rest of us, right? Like we get buried or cremated, and they get monuments put up for the remembrance of their deeds.
Yeah, I guess.
And bagpipes played at their funerals.
I mean, you can do that. I'm gonna have someone hire you to play a bagpipe at my cremation or my barbecue.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep. Yeah, it's just like Jimmy Carter, and guy dies. Lots of people are like, "Oh, he was such a nice guy," but if you listen to some of his aides, I don't think he actually was. I think he may have been a bigger jerk than any of the rest of those guys.
He's just another corrupt politician.
Played it well on camera.
Who cares? Like, I don't care about these corrupt politicians. I don't see why we have to parade a stupid body around just to ooh, look at a politician. Like, why do we have to ooh and ah over a stupid dead politician? It's absurd.
I remember lots of that going on when John McCain died too.
Ugh, it's awful.
The flags at half-mast.
Yeah.
Trump's all upset. Can't believe they're only going to fly the flag at half-mast for my inauguration. Because this Jimmy Carter guy, like, what did he do? He only grew peanuts.
Sure.
Just a peanut farmer. If I was a peanut farmer, I would be the best peanut farmer ever.
Trump is
no one would be a better peanut farmer than me.
Trump is such an insane narcissist.
Yeah, I'm sure Trump.
I don't think he actually said that, though. I made that up.
Right, but it does sound like something Trump would say.
Well, speaking of delicious foods.
Oh, baby food?
I mean,
nummy.
Some? I mean, like, some of those are pretty good.
Not recently, and probably not in a long time, but there was one time my mom had a tenant, and the tenant moved out, and we moved into the tenant's room because it was a studio, and like, hey, we would like to be in the studio, and they left a whole bunch of baby food in the cabinet, and a friend of mine came over and was like, hey, Rich, like, what are you going to do with this baby food? Like, well, dude, we don't have any babies, so like, help yourself.
Yeah.
And he ate all the baby food.
Nice.
Like, not in one sitting, but over the course of whatever, he ate all the baby food.
You just come over and grab a jar.
Right. And then at some point, my mom comes down and she's like, hey, Rich, like, what about all the baby food in the cabinet? I'm like, gave it to my friend. What am I going to do with baby food? She's like, why are you giving that away? It's like super expensive. Like, we don't have any babies. Like, who's gonna? But I got in trouble for giving away the baby food just because how expensive it was.
Oh, wow.
Baby food is not cheap.
But he was also, this was also a friend that I went over to his house. We riding our bikes around town. And he's like, Rich, I'm thirsty. Let's stop off at my house. And he goes into his house and he strains pickle juice from the jar into a glass.
Yeah.
And just drank that. Like,
I've seen people
delicious. Okay. Well, weirdos.
I couldn't go for that myself.
I mean,
does it quench your thirst? Feels like it'd be like salty and vinegary.
That's what I hear, but
it doesn't.
It's way too vinegary.
It doesn't quench my thirst. I occasionally drink pickle juice for leg cramps or whatever, but
this was a thirst quencher, though. This was like, I'm thirsty. There's water right there at the tap.
Yeah, I would rather drink water than pickle juice.
And he was like, pickle juice. So baby food and pickle juice.
That's a little weird.
All right. Baby food. CNN Health. Baby food labels.
Another reputable news source.
Baby food labels will reveal levels of lead and other heavy metals for the first time. So they're admitting it?
I guess
this is
so.
the first time they're actually putting it in there?
They're finally labeling the food with lead labels and saying, oh, well, this food has X amount of lead in it, just so people know. It's like, well, why did you wait till now to tell the people that we're poisoning our babies with lead?
Okay, I'm going to read the story, but then the question I have for you, like right off the bat, is then like, was this something that was a necessary government intervention? Like, what if they, if they could have this whole time and didn't? Like, the market has spoken, right? All right, think about that. Lead and other toxic heavy metals have been found in dangerously elevated amounts in some commercial baby foods sold in the United States. Yet parents have had no way to know if the baby food they purchased contained those higher levels. Enter a California law that requires baby food manufacturers to use an accredited lab to test representative samples of any infant and toddler food, excluding infant formula, at least once a month for levels of arsenic, cadmium, lead, and mercury. As of January 1st, baby food manufacturers must provide those test results to the public on their websites. Anyone can access those results by scanning a QR code on the baby food label with their smartphones. The new law applies only to sales of baby food in California, but major manufacturers, including market leaders Gerber and Beechnut, tell CNN they are rolling out QR codes on baby and toddler foods nationwide. This is a transparency law, and in the court of public opinion, transparency is where you breed accountability, said Jacelyn Bowen, executive producer of the Clean Label Project, a nonprofit dedicated to transparent food labeling. All right, I'm going to stop right there, because if you're a nonprofit, right, couldn't you just do the testing? Like, hey, we grabbed a sample of this baby food and here's what we found. Post that on your website for parents or whomever to go look at, right? And like not get the government involved and just be a third-party audit.
I would agree with you, but people have this strange notion that, hey, we want to make sure that labels are clearly declaring how much lead is in this baby food. So we're going to ask the government, the benevolent overlords, to do this for us rather than doing it ourselves.
There ought to be a law, and so they get one passed.
That's the name lobby for you.
I quickly looked up how much it would cost to have baby food tested on your own for lead. It looks like it's under $200. Right,
but this is a nonprofit, right? They test one bottle a month of whatever Gerber brand they get off there, and they absorb the cost through donations. They don't have to test every bottle. Obviously, you can't do that.
Right.
But if you're like, hey, I'm buying like baby's mushed carrots, and I can go to their website and say like, wow, their test of baby's mushed carrots has shown a small sample of lead, right? Maybe I don't buy that one,
right,
that month, right? Or sometimes they have batch labels on the foods and they can test it that way.
So it's kind of sad, but in order to avoid feeding your baby lead, it does kind of seem like you got to buy the stuff you intend to feed to your baby and then send it off to the lab and pay them $200 per sample to find out whether or not.
If you were trying to do it as an individual.
Yeah.
Right. But again, even if you got together with like 10 other families and it's $20 for a sample.
Yep.
Right. If everyone puts in on it, and then fine, you send one sample, you buy your batch, you send one off to get sampled, and then 20 families absorb the cost.
Yeah. My point of this is that I think it's always a good idea to find a way.
Yeah.
To split out the cost between a bunch of other families if you need to, however you got to do it. I think it's always best to verify yourself.
I mean, I don't know if
not leave it up to a law that says they got to list whatever levels on their label.
Well, yeah, you're right, but at the same time, the only choice you have right now, if you're not going to test yourself, right, is to believe what's on the package.
Yep.
Right, like you read the ingredients and you go like, wow, okay, this looks like I can eat it, right, if you have allergies. Yeah. But no one is sending off their like pack of Lay's to the lab to get tested for anything.
Yep.
Right? No one does that. They just trust what's on the packaging because it's like FDA approved.
Well, that's what we do on the average, is because we're generally trusting people, or try to be, but at the same time it's like, well, these companies don't always test for everything all the time. So, one day the FDA inspector can come by and they're like, oh, we better make sure our shop is in tip-top shape just so the FDA inspector doesn't get us, and then they go back to their usual manufacturing practices.
Yeah, I mean, there was a website, I don't know if it still exists because it's not stuff I'm interested in, but are you guys familiar with like Arrowwood?
Yes, I'm familiar with Arrowwood.
Okay, they would test like illicit drugs, like street drugs, and you could send in, if you bought a pack of like ecstasy and you send in one to them and they would test it, for free or for a fee or whatever. And you're like, okay, I know I'm not getting, cut merchandise here from whoever I bought it from.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that was for like black market stuff. It was just a website, so the market already has a way to do this, right? It's just, do you value it enough? If you don't value it as like $200 for my kid, right? Oh yeah, it's okay. I don't want to spend the $200 to see if I'm feeding him lead, right? Then you try to get other people to absorb the cost with you.
Yeah, and it gets further complicated too, because you have such large companies that make the baby food. You go to the store and you look at the baby food and you got 3 or 4 brands that you can pick from.
Yeah.
And they're making a lot of baby food. And so they're buying vegetables from a lot of different farms. And one farm might have different lead levels in their carrots than another.
Yeah.
And so it gets so you might test to find everything looks good, and then the next 3 jars are just chock full of lead.
Or you get a food processor and you just buy carrots.
Yeah.
Right. And then you go to your organic farm, right, where the farmer and that they're not, or you trust that they're not putting anything weird in the soil, and maybe test a carrot here or there.
Yep.
Right. And then you just throw it in the food processor until it turns to mush.
That's right.
Right. Like what's cheaper, $200 per test, or like $200 for a good food processor?
I'd say $200 for a good food processor.
Well, there you go. So just how hard is it? Yeah. Like, okay, I'm busy. I'm a parent. I don't have time to run the food processor for 10 minutes when my baby is screaming, and then I got to clean it up afterwards. And now you're making me do extra work. So I'll just trust the government with my overly inflated little jar of baby food.
Yeah, that is how they get you.
That's how they get you.
Oh, absolutely.
With all this information going public, we're going to force the conversation. What are we feeding America's children? Garbage, generally. Let's make sure, that's me editorializing. Let's make sure that we're talking about nutrient-dense, healthy baby foods that come from good, healthy soils created by good environmental policy, Bowen said. History of heavy metals in baby food. Over the last decade, investigations by consumer advocacy groups and congressional subcommittees have discovered alarming levels of heavy metals in supermarket baby food. So again, if this has been going on for a decade, and the consumer advocacy groups, we'll presume nonprofit for now, right, already know that it's in there and have already come forward with that information, just stop using it, right? Send the market signal to these corporations that, hey, until you start changing your ways, we're not buying your stupid product.
I understand that most people don't think like that. Most people want to rely on the government to keep them safe.
Yep.
Stupid people.
I know.
Unfortunate state of things. Give us a call. This is Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. Get your thoughts on the air.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher. More than 70 million Americans are under winter weather alerts as a huge winter storm is forecast to bring the heaviest snowfall and coldest temperatures in over a decade. Much of Canada and 30 US states from Kansas to the East Coast are affected, according to the National Weather Service. Snowfall of 6 to 12 inches is expected from Ohio to Washington, D.C. States unaccustomed to severe cold, including Mississippi, Texas and Florida, are expecting freezing conditions. Forecasters say it's being caused by the polar vortex, an area of cold air that circulates around the Arctic, sweeping down through Canada. The man who drove a pickup truck into a crowd in New Orleans on New Year's Day had visited the city twice in the months before the attack, according to the FBI. Shamsuddin Jabbar also travelled to Egypt and Canada in 2023, though it's not yet clear if those trips were linked to the plot. Lisa Carton reports.
Investigators said while U.S. Army veteran Shamsuddin Jabbar likely acted alone, they're still trying to determine if he met with anyone while he was abroad and if the trips were connected to the attack. Jabbar also reportedly traveled to New Orleans twice before the attack and took video along Bourbon Street. In the hours before, authorities also say he placed multiple improvised explosives around the city and set a fire inside the home he was renting nearby. The attack killed 14 people, and Jabbar died in a shootout with police after he opened fire on them and the crowd. I'm Lisa Carton.
Monday marks 4 years since the January 6th riots in Washington, D.C., when supporters of then-election-losing President Donald Trump stormed the Capitol trying to stop a transfer of power being formalized in Congress. The events led to the deaths of 5 people, including a police officer. And at the movies, Mufasa the Lion King has taken the lead at the box office in the first weekend of the new year. Scott Carr has the details.
The prequel to Disney's Lion King earned over $7 million just on Friday and is now among the top 15 earners of all the domestic releases of 2024.
The circle is broken. There will be one Lion King.
As Sonic the Hedgehog 3 slows down to second place but has surpassed $170 million in North America. A 4th installment of the Sonic franchise is already underway at Paramount, as Wicked continues to draw crowds, now with a shot at reaching the $450 million mark domestically. I'm Scott Carr.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. This is talk radio that you control. Give us a call. Let us know what you're thinking about. The phone number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160 to get on the air with us. And it's officially unofficial. We've been podcasting since podcasts began, but we've launched a new podcast anyway. The new podcast is 30 to 45 minute show releasing once a week, and you can find it at freetalkcast.com. It's brought to you by the same people who bring you Free Talk Live, and we'd love for you to check it out. The existing radio archive isn't going anywhere. This is just a new show designed from the start to be a podcast. So check it out at freetalkcast.com. In the studio tonight, you've got me, Stu,
Riley,
and Richie Rich, who is scheduled to be on an upcoming episode of the Free Talk Cast. So I'll be joining Ari again. Scheduled for this week. We have a time in mind, and hopefully that remains, but I don't want to say it in case it changes.
Excellent. Yeah, well, I'll have to check that out.
I think all of us will. That'd be really cool.
And the last one I did with Ari, if you want to check it out, was about St. Luigi Mangione of Antelope, Pennsylvania, or however you say that. I don't know what the city's name is, but so we had a good discussion on the healthcare system and the recourse that consumers have against CEOs like that United Healthcare guy.
What do you mean? I thought America had the best healthcare in the world.
We might have the best healthcare in the world, but it's access to it that most people complain about, and who pays for it is the biggest thing.
Right.
Right. And without going into too much detail, like that's one of the biggest problems with the whole debate is they've already conflated health care with health insurance. Like if you don't have health insurance, then you automatically don't have access to health care.
That's pretty much the way it is.
Understood. But there are other ways to obtain health care without health insurance, right? That used to be a thing, right? And for lots of other things, like that's just the way it is, right? I don't need health insurance to go get my eyes checked or to go to the dentist.
That's right.
Right. And I shouldn't need health insurance to go get a regular checkup or a physical. But it's become a thing.
You shouldn't need it.
You shouldn't.
So, yep. So a lot of people without health insurance just forego those sorts of things and
right.
They'll just go to the urgent care if they need an
right.
antibiotic or something like that.
But a regular checkup is in any other industry is not something that insurance covers. Right? Like when you go get an oil change for your car, you pay out of pocket because that's just the way it is. Right?
Yep. Yeah,
but they've conflated it where in order to go get regular health checkups, you need health insurance, and it's a whole disassociation from there.
Yep, all the incentives.
Is that why medical prices are so high? It's because they can get away with charging insurance companies a little more money?
That's exactly why.
That makes sense to me.
That's exactly why you can end up paying $500 or $20 or $2,000 for one bad day at the hospital.
There's no menu of prices when you go to a doctor. And the price system is so convoluted because they've interjected the third-party insurer into the payment mechanism where it would normally cost, maybe it would cost you like $20 to get a checkup, just say, right? But they know that they can bill the insurance $50. So now the price is $50. Yeah. So they bill the insurance $50, and then when you go and they go, well, now the price is $50. And then if you don't have insurance, then you end up paying $50 instead of $20.
Yep.
But if you go through the insurance, right, the insurance will go like, well, you pay the first $40 and then we'll pay the $10, and now you have insurance, but you're not paying $50, you're paying $40, and they're only paying $10.
Right.
And then they raise the price again.
Yeah. Yep. Some hospitals and insurance companies that is across the nation, there's an army of people that just do medical coding.
Yes.
And
a whole industry spawned from this nonsense.
That's because this whole thing has gotten so nonsensical that if it were just written out in plain letters and numbers, that people would just be absolutely horrified.
Oh, you have to pay because the doctor coded your checkup as an N32, which is not covered. But if it's normal checkup, it's an N33, then it would have been fully covered by insurance.
Right, when there's no reason to code it that way, except for to hide from, somebody's eyes what they're actually doing there.
My old boss would complain about it too because he has got the best insurance available to him at his age. He's like, why am I paying for this? And he goes, you know what they told me, Rich? I called, and they said yes, hospital visits are covered, but the attending physician is not. So they bill the hospital separately from the doctor that sees you in the ER.
Oh, wow.
And so he didn't have to pay for the hospital visit, but to see a doctor while you're in the hospital, they charged him an arm and a leg. Luckily, he walked out of the hospital with that.
Yeah.
And same thing. Like he goes, well, if you go to your doctor's office, then there's no copay. But if you go to your doctor's office and a non-covered doctor sees you, well, then it's not covered. Well, how do you know? All you're doing is going to the doctor's office, and whoever walks in the room is the doctor you talk to.
Right. How are you supposed to know?
How are you supposed to know?
Yeah.
Right? They hide it, and then they bill you after the fact, and then you have to be diligent as he is in fighting it.
Yep.
And he's like, I'm just calling the senator's office, Rich. He's a statist, right? So it's fine. I'm just gonna call the senator's office, and they'll have a talk with the CEO, and they'll take care of me. I go, that's a lot of steps to just be able to go see a doctor.
Yeah.
And not have to pay what you thought you didn't have to pay for.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the doctor's got a team of medical coders. They're like, hey, if you just do it this way, you can get,
right,
20% more in your paycheck. And who's not going to do it?
Obviously. Who's not going to do it?
Right.
The pharmaceutical rep shows up, hands you a pen, and goes like, hey, you could get a kickback if you start prescribing this medicine.
Yep.
All of a sudden, everyone's got that problem.
Medicine.
Yep. And not only that, but they do things like
hey, you look fat. Have you tried Ozempic?
Yeah. They'll do things like offer you, they'll just be like, here's some bonus, and then suddenly your bonus becomes dependent on a certain percentage of your clients being having
COVID
up to date on their vaccination schedule,
yeah.
or what have you. And so this is why there's so much pressure from your doctor to do this or that. It's because they want to keep their boat.
All of a sudden, everyone was dying of COVID. No other cause of death during COVID except COVID, because they were getting kickbacks and all this other nonsense.
Yep. Yeah.
They'll deny it, right?
You can come into the ER with a hammer stuck inside of your brain, and they're like, "Oh, that's a bad case of COVID there."
Especially, yeah. If you died of a hammer thing and they tested and you tested positive for COVID death.
Yeah, absolutely.
Blunt force trauma with COVID death.
Yep, they were just throwing money around during that.
Well, money talks, and talks really loud. I don't know. I really don't know what the incentive was for the vaccines to be pushed on people, other than that Pfizer and Moderna could get a major kickback.
Follow the money, man.
Yep.
Like you don't know what the incentive is. Let's just follow the money.
That's specifically the incentive. The way I understand it is that if you do family health and you got a certain amount of families that you see, a certain percentage of those families have to have all their kids up to date on the vaccines, or you don't get your bonus. And the bonus is I think it's a substantial part of the doctor's paycheck. So, or what he's counting on for his salary.
And the other conflation, especially from like the older generation, was like, I was vaccinated. Your kids got vaccinated. What's the big deal?
Those are different vaccines, for one.
And the whole schedule has changed, right? They were vaccinated like maybe 3 vaccines, a handful.
Yeah.
And now it's like 200.
Yeah, for me it was maybe, I don't know, it might have been a dozen or so. But
okay.
Yeah, now it's just ridiculous. And
right.
And right at birth.
Right.
No time to wait. Just here.
Yeah.
I'm jabbing your baby.
Every week you get another like 10 needles stuck in your baby.
Yeah, and they almost don't even give you an opportunity to consent or decline.
Right.
They just,
that's really sad. It's like, what if I have a child and I don't want them to get vaccinated for whatever reason?
Well, then you're a bad parent, and they'll call CPS and take the child from you.
Yeah, you're gonna have to deal with somebody making you feel like a bad parent. I've been in that situation.
But that's the problem, right? There's a generational gap between like what it means to be vaccinated, and they have no conception of how bad it's gotten when they say like, "When I was vaccinated, what's the big deal?" Well, you didn't have 200 by the time you were 1, right? For the first thing, whether or not it causes autism, you can debate that all you want. All right.
Yep.
So we get back into this baby food.
Yeah, let's talk
do it.
about the baby food.
History of heavy metals in baby food. Or did I read this one already? I'll read it again. There's one paragraph. Over the last decade, investigations by the Consumer Advocacy Group and congressional subcommittees have discovered alarming levels of heavy metals in supermarket baby food. According to a 2021 congressional investigation, internal documents from major manufacturers revealed some baby food samples contained up to 177 times the lead level, 91 times the inorganic arsenic level, and 69 times the cadmium level allowed in bottled water by federal agencies. These heavy metals have been linked to cancer, chronic disease, and neurotoxic effects, but it's the damage that can be done to a developing child's brain that makes baby food toxicity so devastating.
Now we know what's causing the autism is the baby food.
Could be.
Yeah,
right? Test on that.
I think it's multifaceted, definitely. I think it's a cocktail of environmental toxins.
Okay. I would also like to know what the like actual autism rates were in the past, because I feel like the whole autism thing was just overlooked, right? Like there were probably a lot of autistic people in history, and we just called them retards and put them in institutions.
That's probably very impossible.
And now that we have a diagnosis, it seems more prevalent, but it's just we handle them differently than we used to.
Yep, could definitely be that too. Right now we've got a caller on the line, so we're going to go to the phones to the fun. We've got Gigi in South Carolina. Gigi, what's on your mind?
Hi, everybody on the program this evening, as well as all the listeners in the good old U.S. of A. I am Gigi calling live from Charleston, and I'm calling to wish everyone listening or participating in this evening's show a very healthy new year with only wonderful, personal, professional, successful endeavors to everyone. I love this program.
Thanks, Gigi.
That's my news.
Was that it?
Well, I also like what you said.
Well,
do
that goes
believe
without
you.
saying. What specifically,
regarding
Gigi?
the autism. Pardon me?
I said, well, that goes without saying, Gigi. But go ahead.
You're so cute. Again, the pot roast invitation is always open.
I told the captain. He is well aware of the invitation.
You're so cute. I got a wonderful letter, as did Jeffrey and I both. We got a wonderful letter from Ian. We love reading his letters, and we feel very strongly about staying in touch with him. And he was writing in the letter that the captain bought a trailer, and he's traveling around the country. He was recently in freezing ice-cold Wisconsin. Oh,
Yeah.
my God, I could never do that. It's so cold there.
Oh, man.
The last time I talked to the captain, he was like out on the West Coast in Seattle visiting friends. So I don't know if he drove out there or where he is now.
Seattle, the few years I lived there while I was in graduate school, it was wonderful, and I remember he loved Seattle also. Wasn't he in a band when he lived in Seattle?
Yep, he was.
I pay attention to everything that man said.
Did you buy his EP though, Eluth Romania?
Pardon?
I said, did you buy his EP though, Eluth Romania?
No.
Oh, Gigi. I said I talked to the captain.
I'd rather cook for him and seduce him intellectually.
Oh, quote unquote intellectually. I send the captain. I still send the captain all the headlines that are like too hot to read on air, just because I think he'll get a kick out of it.
You guys are too cute.
And he sends me stuff he thinks like will go good on the air if I haven't already seen it. It goes into the Sunday pile.
Yep. I don't know if it's still an option to get one, but Captain Kick-Ass shirts are also a good
will
buy.
get all of you everywhere, gentlemen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, on the serious side of things, please, I would like an update on the importance, the controversy, the negativity, the concern, all of the ramifications on both sides of the argument regarding vaccines. Here in Charleston, man, people are getting horrible influenzas, pneumonia, and COVID. It's like it's spiraling out of control.
Right. So I'll say.
So is it important to be vaccinated? Is it important not to be? How do we approach this in a healthy manner for people medically?
From an individual perspective, right? Like I know for me personally, I don't even recall the last time I've been to a doctor for any sort of checkup. And it's mostly because I'm not insured and I haven't gotten sick enough to like need medical intervention.
Yep.
So I don't
Thank goodness,
care.
Richie.
Right.
Thank goodness.
Right.
I'm kind of the same way Richie Rich is. I haven't been to a doctor in a while and I haven't got any vaccines because
I am very happy to hear that about both of you.
I just feel like if I put enough nutrition in my body or avoid dangerous situations where illnesses are prevalent and not associated with a ton of people, then I should be less worried about getting sick. That being said, if I go out in public, I'm liable to get sick, and that's normal wear and tear about life.
But it's it's likely going to be a common cold type of thing, right? So
we
when
can all handle.
When it comes to the vaccines, again, I think more attention needs to be drawn to the amount of vaccines on the vaccine schedule for infants, right? It's if I don't have the number in front of me, but look it up, Gigi. It's absurd and obscene the amount of chemicals they're putting into babies at a really early age and an early stage in the development cycle.
What about just the overuse of basic antibiotics? When you have a virus, Mother Nature is going to do its work, and it has to run its course.
Right, but the anti-vaccine argument, right, is usually thrown into the realm of like conspiracy theories, right? Oh, you're an anti-vaxxer, right? So you're a bad person. You don't believe medical science, and it's like, no, it's not that I don't believe it. It's just that, in my opinion, it's not what it used to be, right? Like when you were vaccinated, Gigi, if you were vaccinated, Gigi, it was probably like MMR, and that's it, right? Like measles, mumps, and rubella.
Or maybe polio.
Maybe polio.
I remember as a very little girl being in the pediatrician's office, being given the polio vaccine out of an eyedropper onto a little sugar cube.
Okay. And so, like...
I'm not that old, gentlemen.
Ah.
Well, but that's the thing. It ramped up really quickly, right, to where it's now like in the dozens, if not hundreds of vaccines that they're expected to get before they're like a year old.
Well,
right?
should it be a personal choice of a parent over
of course
their child, or should it be the welfare of the public health majority?
No, screw those guys.
Who is the public, and why should I care about its welfare? That's the question I have.
The public
Well, I mean, if there's an epidemic that breaks out.
The public would sacrifice an individual in order to save the rest.
Yeah.
And that's not fair to the individual. Like, all of a sudden, their life doesn't matter in order to save the majority. Like, that's utilitarianism at its
This issue has
finest.
already been taken to court in upstate New York with measles.
Okay. Go on. What was the
And
decision?
The welfare of the majority because of public health outweighed the rights of particular parents governing their minor children to be
Right.
vaccinated.
So, in that
Because
instance...
measles was so highly contagious, the governor and the court, the Supreme Court of New York State, felt the majority public welfare endangerment outweighed the rights of the individual parents.
So they did a cost-benefit analysis and said it's okay to murder however many kids that we're going to murder that are going to
they didn't
averse...
use the murder.
Well,
The word
they're not. Of course, they're not
They
going to
didn't
use it.
The word murder.
But if
they use the word vaccinate.
Yeah, but if the vaccination caused harm and death, right? I'm fine using the term murder, even if it has a legal connotation that I'm using incorrectly.
Okay.
Right. If the state goes, Gigi,
about everybody's opinion on this.
Mute her, please.
Well, so the real problem here is that when they went through all of this, they had the other part of the balance that they were weighing when they made a cost-benefit analysis was these vaccine manufacturers holding a bag of money out there, for one thing, and that certainly added to it.
But they're saying you must get the vaccine, and if it's harmful to you and you die, right, that's fine because we're saving however many lives for the public good.
Yeah.
Right.
Sounds a lot like Madeleine Albright, huh?
Part of that calculation is we're accepting. Now, that's fine from a societal level, right? Like, oh yeah, we're there's an acceptable loss. But if you're like the individual who's going to have an adverse reaction to the vaccine, right? Are you obligated to sacrifice the only life you have for the betterment of society? No. Screw off with that nonsense, right? Now, will you have to defend yourself possibly to the death for them not to attack you? Also quite possible. But how do you want to go out?
Yep. Any more thoughts,
I was
Gigi?
paying attention and listening, and I see the legitimate argument on both sides of the coin, so to speak. It's such a sensitive and controversial subject.
It shouldn't even be controversial. Individuals should be able to make a choice.
So I don't know how it affects a parent. How should I handle a vaccine for my child? I'm not
just
a
tell the
parent,
doctor
so I
no.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
A
pretty
parent,
simple.
a
They'll try
parent
to
shouldn't
not-
be able to force a vaccine onto their child,
Yeah.
right? Because the state said so, and then just accept the loss of that child for the betterment of society. That's obscene.
Yep, and you got to watch these doctors like a hawk because they'll as soon as you turn your back, they'll be like, "Oh, sorry, vaccinated." They're sneaky like that.
Oh yeah, we did it in school after you dropped them off.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks for the call.
Hogwash.
Gigi.
Benefits of both sides. No.
Hogwash indeed.
One is freedom and liberty and protection of the individual. The other is like throwing virgins to volcanoes.
Yeah.
Right? It's the
That's
same
essentially
thing.
what it kind of turns out to be is, throwing virgins to volcanoes when you're sacrificing one individual for the good of the common good or whatever.
Because the sun god said so.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to go back to the phones where we've got Tim in Florida. Tim, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, how's it going? I just wanted to chime in here on the subject currently being presented.
Oh, good.
Maybe bring a little bit of balance. There was recently an interview with on the Last American Vagabond with Ryan Christian. He interviewed this guy, Dennis Rancor. The title of the interview is "The COVID-19 Illusion: Biological Stress-Induced Bacterial Pneumonia." And basically the theory is that, and not to say that the virus and the vaccine haven't killed anyone, because the spike protein is apparently very toxic, whether it comes from either the virus, if that even exists.
I didn't know what myocarditis was until a few years ago.
Yep.
And it seems to be way too prevalent to just have come out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Does seem like
I also didn't know what like sudden adult death syndrome was. Right? I've heard of SIDS.
Yep, I've heard of SIDS.
But all of a sudden they're like, no, this is SADS. We don't know what caused the death. It's just sudden adult death syndrome.
Yeah.
Like, never heard that term until post-COVID.
Sure, Sam.
Seems kind of sus to me.
Yep. Who did you say wrote this book?
It's a podcast, I think.
Well, this was this was an interview with Dennis Rancourt, and it's basically about biological stress-induced bacterial pneumonia, which is like we're a constant biome. We have bacteria in us, on us, all over us, all the time. And when there's this phenomenon that even the CDC has acknowledged years ago, before the whole COVID thing, that basically when people hear that there's sickness going around, there's a tendency for people to get sick. And then if you put a mask over your face, you're going to trap all that bacteria in your system. And anyway.
Do you want to hold over and expound on it on the other side?
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
We'll talk more about this coming up on the other side of the break. This is Free Talk Live. This is talk radio that you control. Give us a call, 603-283-6160.
Are you making sense to the boomer mindset? I'm Holland Cook from survivalspeech.com. 80 million baby boomers comprise 25% of the population and control most of the USA's wealth. As aging parents pass on, they'll control more. Boomers are 46 to 65 years old and regard themselves as midlife. They identify as neither young nor old. They're post-minivan and pre-retirement, and they don't like being called boomers. They think me. Many of the purchases boomer couples make are individual purposes. They've been experimenters all their lives. If you want their attention, tell stories and keep it simple. If something seems complicated, boomers can dismiss it as, I don't need this. And if you're looking for work, you may be applying to a boomer, so relate accordingly. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher. More than 70 million Americans are under winter weather alerts as a huge winter storm is forecast to bring the heaviest snowfall and coldest temperatures in over a decade. Much of Canada and 30 US states from Kansas to the East Coast are affected, according to the National Weather Service. Snowfall of 6 to 12 inches is expected from Ohio to Washington, D.C. States unaccustomed to severe cold, including Mississippi, Texas and Florida, are expecting freezing conditions. Forecasters say it's being caused by the polar vortex, an area of cold air that circulates around the Arctic, sweeping down through Canada. The man who drove a pickup truck into a crowd in New Orleans on New Year's Day had visited the city twice in the months before the attack, according to the FBI. Shamsuddin Jabbar also travelled to Egypt and Canada in 2023, though it's not yet clear if those trips were linked to the plot. Lisa Carton reports.
Investigators said while U.S. Army veteran Shamsuddin Jabbar likely acted alone, they're still trying to determine if he met with anyone while he was abroad and if the trips were connected to the attack. Jabbar also reportedly traveled to New Orleans twice before the attack and took video along Bourbon Street. In the hours before, authorities also say he placed multiple improvised explosives around the city and set a fire inside the home he was renting nearby. The attack killed 14 people, and Jabbar died in a shootout with police after he opened fire on them and the crowd. I'm Lisa Carton.
Monday marks 4 years since the January 6th riots in Washington, D.C., when supporters of then-election-losing President Donald Trump stormed the Capitol trying to stop a transfer of power being formalized in Congress. The events led to the deaths of 5 people, including a police officer. And at the movies, Mufasa the Lion King has taken the lead at the box office in the first weekend of the new year. Scott Carr has the details.
The prequel to Disney's Lion King earned over $7 million just on Friday and is now among the top 15 earners of all the domestic releases of 2024.
The circle is broken. There will be one Lion King.
As Sonic the Hedgehog 3 slows down to second place but has surpassed $170 million in North America. A fourth installment of the Sonic franchise is already underway at Paramount, as Wicked continues to draw crowds, now with a shot at reaching the $450 million mark domestically. I'm Scott Carr.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, growing frustration in Europe over Elon Musk's continuing interference in the continent's affairs. Over the weekend, he kept up a blitz of messages over his social media platform, targeting the government of Keir Starmer in Britain for more criticism, even going after a politician long considered a Musk ally, Nigel Farage of Reform UK. He's also sown chaos in Germany, where the richest man in the world is aggressively promoting the far-right AfD in next month's elections. How should European governments respond?
It's a very hard question to answer because there's almost no precedent for it.
Arthur Snell is a former British diplomat and host of the podcast Behind the Lines.
We've certainly got lots of case studies of countries where we have bad relations being perfectly prepared to, say disobliging things about us. But Musk is, let's not forget, he's got a government role. He might be the richest man in the world and everyone knows he's a big businessman, but he's got his own role in Trump's government, the Department of Government and Efficiency. We've seen lots of people in this country already say that Keir Starmer or someone from the UK government needs to formally respond. The issue there is that no one wants to annoy Trump in the phase where Musk appears to be right inside his inner circle.
How long will the bromance between Trump and Musk last? We don't know, but it must definitely be coming under strain. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
Our main news again. More than 70 million Americans are under winter weather alerts as a huge winter storm is forecast to bring the heaviest snowfall and coldest temperatures in over a decade. The man who drove a pickup truck into a crowd in New Orleans on New Year's Day had visited the city twice in the months before the attack, according to the FBI. And Monday marks 4 years since the January 6th riots in Washington, D.C. And that's the latest feature story news. Kate Fisher reporting.
According to a study released Thursday by the Princeton University Department of Biology, this local 2-year-old woodland chipmunk has crafted a far more secure and dependable plan for the future than 8 out of 10 Americans. Reporters spoke to citizens to get their view on the study.
Clearly, this chipmunk is pretty impressive. I mean, he wakes up every morning and says, I need to collect acorns and berries for the winter. He sets goals for himself and he gets it done.
He has to make a burrow in a tree stump. That's exactly what he does. He doesn't pause and have a snack and lay around for a few hours.
Out of nearly 40 separate interviews with Americans, 33 told reporters they were very impressed by the chipmunk's continued display of foresight, personal responsibility, and pragmatic decision-making when considering his own future.
He's preparing for winter, he's building a home, and he's trying to get enough nutrients to make it throughout the rest of the day. All this while being worried about maybe getting eaten by a wolf or an owl or something. Earlier this week, the electricity went off in my home because I forgot to pay my bill. It's the second time this year.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. Give us a call, 603-283-6160 to get on the air. Let us know what's on your mind. Are you tired of the oppressive rules of moderation of the big tech social media sites? Our Mastodon server at social.freetalklive.com can set you free. Mastodon is free, open source, decentralized, and federated. Multiple apps are available for iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, and Linux. social.freetalklive.com. In the studio tonight, you've got me, Stu.
Riley.
And Richie Rich.
And we were on a phone call that we'll go back to. This is Tim in Florida. Tim was talking about a bacterial condition that seems to be the cause of some of this.
Recap it for people just tuning in, Tim, and then carry on.
Tim, are you still there?
Timmy!
Tim. We'll put Tim on hold for a minute, see if he comes back.
I thought I heard him in the background.
Well, he's got to learn to speak up then.
Let's see. Hang on, maybe I pushed the wrong button. Maybe this is
No,
Tim.
you pushed the right button.
Is this?
Hey, can you hear me?
Is this Tim?
Yep.
Yeah, don't Mastodon.
Oh, okay.
We got you back, Tim.
Hey,
right button, long line.
Can you recap for us what you were saying about the bacterial thing?
Yeah, I'll do my best. So I love this show. It's called a podcast called The Last American Vagabond. He did a interview with a gentleman from a PhD actually from Canada named Dennis Rancourt. I'm probably not pronouncing his name right because it's probably like Denis because it's Denis. Rancourt, Rancourt. And the name of the interview is The COVID-19 Illusion, Biological Stress-Induced Bacterial Pneumonia. And basically it's the theory that, not to say that the vaccine isn't killing people or giving them myocarditis, because incidentally, just to sidetrack real quick, back in the 90s, the government funded research into inducing myocarditis using a SARS virus to induce myocarditis into rabbits. And this was paid with our taxes.
You don't
so
say.
Anyway, yeah, and then of course you've got the concept of self-replicating vaccines, which might as well be viruses. But the bacterial-induced pneumonia is basically when society is very stressed out. You know, they were under lockdown, they were in mask, and trapping the bacteria from their own body into their face, and just breathing it back in. And then the more stressed out you are, the lower your immune system gets, and you get sick. And then you combine that with PCR tests, which are highly questionable, highly give off false positives. And then you have a mathematical manipulation where they stopped logging, they stopped testing for the flu for a certain amount of time. They stopped testing for other illnesses, and they would only test for COVID. And so if somebody had the flu, there was COVID. If somebody had anything, it was COVID.
Yeah, the flu basically just kind of went away for a little while, and nobody got the flu at all.
But it's back. now that they're like pushing
vengeance.
Now that they're pushing the flu vaccine again.
Yeah.
So this talk of bacterial-induced pneumonia brings to mind a theory I heard one time where they were talking about U.S. government funding. Nope, I take that back. This was a Nazi scientist experiment where they were messing around with the Brucella bacteria.
So still government.
Yep.
Just a different one.
And they found that this Brucella bacteria was really a really tricky substance in that it would change from one form to another given whatever environmental stressor was put upon it. And it could go dormant and become active, and it could do a lot of tricky things. It was really hard to hunt down in tests. So like if you were ill with brucellosis, then it's a really hard thing to diagnose, and if they do find it, it's also very hard to get rid of.
Okay. So it would manifest as something else, so there was a lot of like misdiagnoses at the time, is that?
Yeah, and I think the person that was laying this all out was making the claim that this was one of those there is no virus existent arguments, and that everything's bacteria. And I don't know if I subscribe to that, but it certainly was an interesting.
So like the germ theory versus terrain theory, people.
This theory actually kind of. I'll just read you this quote from the Last American Vagabond real quick. Where is it? It bridges the gap. Where is it? Bridges the gap between those who believe in terrain theory and those who believe in germ theory. It's not that the vaccine isn't killing anyone. It's not that there is or isn't a virus. He's basically saying it's irrelevant because you start to look at the numbers, and you'd have one county that had all these deaths, and then the next county over there would be no deaths, and that doesn't make sense if we're just. And it's because of he's saying it's because of the procedures, the policies that they enacted in those specific counties versus other counties. I mean, you take the nursing homes, for example, in New York, where they were basically putting masks on, very elderly people, isolating them in their rooms. These people were scared; they had no idea what was going on, and and then in some cases you're shoving ventilators down people's throats. You weren't giving them any antibiotics. Poor people stopped receiving antibiotics unless they had connections.
I'm convinced that the ventilators caused a lot more deaths than they're claiming.
Yeah, me
as
too.
well.
Yeah. And they gave them sedatives. So not only did they sit those ventilators, they gave them sedatives, and so they were more likely to eventually, asphyxiate on the pneumonia.
Like it seemed like everyone who was on a ventilator ended up dying, and they didn't need someone to breathe for them. They just needed oxygen. So like an oxygen tank would have been sufficient, but they all went with ventilators, and I'm convinced that was killing them personally.
Yeah.
Well, I think
then they wouldn't let people into hospitals.
Yeah, I think somebody recently admitted that the protocol they were using for the ventilator was the wrong oxygen pressure mix for what was called for.
Yeah.
But it was standardized, and they were all told to use it. So
there you go.
They weren't giving anyone prednisone either. No corticosteroids. And and the other thing is because they weren't giving them antibiotics if they were sick from bacteria, they're saying, oh well, it's the COVID virus. It's the COVID virus, so don't give them any antibiotics. And so that's potentially fatal in large numbers.
Yeah.
I just don't like, it was a virus. Fine, it was a virus. Like, I'm not gonna get into like whether it existed or not discussion. But the survival rate was so high, and if you were healthy, you were likely going to survive.
Yeah.
And then they closed up everything where people could remain healthy.
Yeah.
Right. Like you can't go to the gym, you can't go out and exercise, you can't go outside. Right. You have to be in like the most unhealthy environment.
Yeah.
When this virus kills the unhealthy, and that seemed backwards to me.
Yeah, I agree. I remember those days, and I remember thinking how backward it was for them to rope off a park where kids could play outside in the sun in the desert.
Get some fresh air, get some vitamin D from the sun, get some exercise. like keep your immune system healthy. They're like, no, this virus is going to kill you, and it's not. It wasn't. The people doing those things were not going to be susceptible to death.
No.
Maybe they catch it, all right? Maybe, and they survive it, right? Most of the people in the studio here got it.
Yeah,
and we're all still alive,
seems
most of
to
us.
me like they could have.
You all thought you got it. But the cure is worse than disease. Bottom line.
Yeah, I didn't go to a doctor for it. I also didn't get tested. I don't know if I got it.
I don't know if I got it either.
Sick.
But
I lost my sense of taste and smell for a while, but
I was
fine now.
I was sicker than I've ever been, and I missed 0 days of work. And I know I have it by association, right? I know when I got it, and I know how I got it, because Mark Edge came to the studio sick, and he said to us, "I'm sick. Yeah. It's not COVID. I know this because my cough isn't dry. Do you want to see?" And we went, "No, we do not. We do not want to see you coughing up loogies."
Yeah.
Right?
That's a weird thing to say.
And then like a day later, he called us and said, "Hey guys, I tested positive for COVID, so you probably have it too." And then a couple days later, symptoms started to show.
Yep.
But that's the point. The PCR tests are highly inaccurate.
Okay. I don't know what test he used, but that's why I say that I had it. I had something. It was worse than the flu and worse than any common cold I've had before. And I missed 0 days of work.
Yep. And it does, by my own observation, it does seem like something that was catching or contagious.
Yeah.
But I can't rule that out as being the only possibility, because if it's an environmental stressor that just changes the bacteria that's already in us, that also plays out.
But I wasn't stressed. I wasn't wearing a mask. Unless you're saying the fact that he told me elevated my stress levels, that's fine. We'll operate under that presumption.
Yeah.
Yeah, I consider everything. I'm not saying it's so. This is one theory. Now, another factor to take into consideration is nanotechnology, self-assembling nanoparticles and things. There's a long history of this, and a lot of the people that were involved in the mRNA vaccines were also involved in this nanotechnology, basically to use the structure of a virus to deliver a payload, whether it be a weapon or a cure. And on top of that, you've got smart dust, which is basically a fine particulate matter, but they are microscopic computer chips that's smaller than a grain of salt. And they've been used in real world application already. It was shipping to keep track of inventory where it is. And basically the idea of the internet of cells, the internet of bodies, where you can have these things inside your body, you can inhale them, and all of a sudden they communicate with each other basically in a mesh network. And, they can be used for health, or they can be used as a weapon.
So what is the proclaimed solution then? If it's that insidious and that unavoidable, is there anything that we can do to counteract, to prevent it, or is it just that's what's going to happen and you live with it or die?
I think we all have to learn carpentry or find a carpenter that's a friend and start redoing remaking the guillotines.
Okay.
I don't know if that's going to do much, but okay.
It'll stop the people perpetrating this nonsense.
Well,
maybe. If not, it'll be fun.
I just mean if I get so sick, there's no other option, or if I just want to cut a watermelon.
Well, I forgot which agency it is, but one of FEMA or NSA or one of these agencies recently bought, I think it was 60,000 guillotines. So if you can find those.
For what purpose?
That was my question. If you can find those, then, I think that'd be plenty to cut all the watermelons you need.
Yep.
And that's a fascinating topic for another time. I will let you gentlemen go.
Appreciate the call.
Thanks for the call.
Thanks for the call, Tim.
What were we even talking about?
Yeah. We were talking about...
We were talking about baby food.
How do we even get back into baby food from that?
I don't know.
Yeah. So much for Sunday Fun Day, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Heavy metals in baby food. The combined investigations led to the introduction of the Baby Food Safety Act of 2024, which is still stuck in committee. In October 2023, however, California acted on its own. The AB 899 California bill requires manufacturers to test the final baby food product to a level of 6 parts per billion for each heavy metal, and if the result is over that, manufacturers must specify that number. And Nick Mayers, co-founder of Light Labs, a certified laboratory providing testing for the baby food manufacturers. So it's not even like a recall. It's not like even you can't. It's that, you just got to tell people. If it's too toxic for baby consumption, that has to be on the label, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah. A big part of these toxicity levels are really just having to do with what the soil makeup is in which the vegetables are grown. Things like that. It's not like they're adding lead into it, but these disturbing lead amounts are...
well, I guess my point is that the law says must be notified. So, I mean, if it's that bad, right? Presumably, it should be banned, right? You should be notified, and then consumers should make the choice not to consume it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah.
This is toxic and poisonous.
If I were the manufacturer and I saw those reports, I would not send it out for one, and then I would probably recall all the product that was already out.
And what does it say about the manufacturer? We tested it. It tested positive for lead.
Yeah, a lot of lead looks like...
We put it on the label, so there you go. Make the right choice.
Yep, send it to the store. Yeah, that's, I don't know, not a decision I could easily make.
Yeah. 1 part per billion would be equal to adding a single drop of water to a 10,000-gallon swimming pool. However, no level of lead is safe for infants and toddlers. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the World Health Organization, and the American Academy of Pediatrics. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has proposed setting lead levels in baby food of 10 parts per billion for many products and 20 parts per billion for cereals and root vegetables, which can absorb the highest levels. The agency has previously set levels to 100 parts per billion for arsenic in baby rice cereal, a level critics call too high. However, the FDA hasn't taken any action on any other heavy metals. Of course, any non-zero number is going to be scary to parents, but these heavy metals are in the Earth's crust and cannot be eliminated entirely, even in foods we make at home, Mayer said. However, experts said manufacturers can greatly reduce levels of toxic metals by carefully choosing their suppliers, such as opting for farmers who grow food in a less polluted soils and use regenerative farming techniques. No-till farming, rotating crops, and growing cover crops, for example, all help microbes in the soil bind with heavy metals, leaving fewer toxins for plants to absorb.
That's right, and these processes are things that a lot of the large food growers are not doing. They just plant the same crop in the same field year after year.
Right.
And they just sprinkle a bunch of stuff on it to make it grow.
From Monsanto.
Yep. And you're not getting any magnesium in your food. You're not getting any, copper, zinc, the things that are necessary that you expect to be in your food are completely missing. And it might be just chock full of things you don't want, like cadmium and lead, things like that.
Now, I still generally shop at the grocery store, and that's because I'm cost conscious, right? So if I were to go down to the local farmer's market or get some farm produce from the farmers, or even meats from, the cow farm or the pig farm, right? It seems to me significantly more expensive than the factory farm stuff on the grocery store shelves.
Yeah.
Right.
From my experience, that's correct.
Right. So I'm doing on an individual level, my own cost benefit analysis, and I'm sure there's the amount of poor people in the world outnumber the amount of wealthy people in the world, and they're going to make similar decisions to me.
Yep.
Right. I would love to buy organic farm grass fed beef.
Yeah.
Right. But I can't afford that on a regular basis.
Yeah.
It's too expensive.
I'd love to raise my own food, but there's way too much work involved.
Yeah. Then you're a farmer.
Yeah.
Right. And you can't do other things. You spend all your time farming.
Yeah. Subsistence farming is not an easy sort of human experience.
I did say I'm on record on Free Talk Live, when people were talking about the tiny farms and the front garden, the front yard farms, like, oh, just grow your own food.
Yeah.
You know, so get away from the government. I'm like, man, I really want grass. Like, why? Like, because grass is a status symbol, always has been. Like, if you're growing grass, it means like I'm rich enough to not have to like grow my own food.
Yeah, that's basically what a lawn is.
And so that's what I want. I'm rich. I want to have the wealth where like you have your farm next to me and you have your farm next to me, and I've got like grass, and I'll just buy my stuff from you.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no desire to have a lawn, but I can see the appeal in them. I really like golf courses.
I'll get like an illegal immigrant to come and do the lawn care for me because I can afford that too.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Right?
Yeah. Have them mowing the cross paths. Nice tall edges.
In all likelihood, these marketplace changes will do more to drive down the levels of toxic metals than anything the FDA might ultimately do, Farber said. Expect some delays in implementation. The new California law applies to all baby foods manufactured on or after January 1st, 2025. But consumers should be aware existing products that do not meet the new guidelines do not have to be removed from retail shelves. Products with the new QR code may trickle in during the early part of 2025 as companies adjust their production schedules. Gerber, which is owned by Nestle SA, told CNN the first round of products that display the result of the heavy metal testing won't be available until mid-January. All testing results can be found by scanning the QR code of the product label or by visiting Gerber.com, says Chandra Kumar, president of Nestle Nutrition North America, in an email. Consumers can then search for their product either by typing in a batch number or searching by product name. Kumar said Gerber has regularly tested for more than 500 toxins and contaminants for decades and implements more than 100 individual quality checks before a baby food is sold. We test crops, water, ingredients, and our final products to ensure we deliver on our promise to make high-quality, safe baby food, Kumar said. So I want to touch on two things real quick. If that's true, then you would anticipate that when they do these tests independently, that none of their products will show any of these contaminants at the levels by the law, right? It's just going to be like across the board.
It's going to be low.
It's going to be low. And the second thing, as I wanted to mention earlier in the article, this is one of those things where how much power California has just because of its population, right? Like California passes a law, and no matter what the law is, like it's nationwide compliance because there's no reason to tool up the machinery or the labelers for like just California and then the rest of it.
Right.
So, you know, California sets the standard, just like Texas, the school textbooks in Texas, they're all written for Texas because the vast majority of those books get sold in Texas. And so the rest of the rest of the world or the rest of the United States gets like the Texas version of the textbooks.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's silly, but that's where it is.
Huh.
Beech-Nut has also tested raw ingredients in baby food purees for 30 years, and in 2022 began testing the final products sold to consumers, according to Jason Jacobs, Vice President of Quality and Technical Services at Beech-Nut. In addition to testing for heavy metals, we also screen for up to 255 pesticides, toxins, and other environmental elements, Jacobs said in an email. Before raw ingredients are shipped to us, we require our farming partners to undergo a rigorous testing and documentation process before we accept them as producers.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to think about with that story.
And more. It's not done, but we can continue or move on.
Yeah, we can talk more about that, or you can give us a call and get your thoughts on the air. 603-283-6160.
Free Talk Live.
Yeah, this would work if there was no government and everything worked the right way.
Communism requires central control. There's evidence that the free market works. The marketplace is what has created all of the wondrous things that we have and take for granted in this world. The marketplace is what brings us air conditioning, grocery stores, the internet, all the things that you enjoy, your cell phone, all the things you take for granted. That's not as a result of government. Government slows down and impedes the market. Government restricts freedom and it restricts the marketplace. So, there's evidence that the freer a market is. Look at the computer industry, for instance. The more free and the less regulated a market is, the better the innovation, the better the competition, the better the prices, and the better the quality of the products and the services. I mean, we've got evidence to prove that our economic model is sound.
And look at all the wealthy people that the computer industry has created.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week.
from 7 to 10 Eastern at freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher. More than 70 million Americans are under winter weather alerts as a huge winter storm is forecast to bring the heaviest snowfall and coldest temperatures in over a decade. Much of Canada and 30 US states from Kansas to the East Coast are affected, according to the National Weather Service. Snowfall of 6 to 12 inches is expected from Ohio to Washington, D.C. States unaccustomed to severe cold, including Mississippi, Texas and Florida, are expecting freezing conditions. Forecasters say it's being caused by the polar vortex, an area of cold air that circulates around the Arctic, sweeping down through Canada. The man who drove a pickup truck into a crowd in New Orleans on New Year's Day had visited the city twice in the months before the attack, according to the FBI. Shamsuddin Jabbar also travelled to Egypt and Canada in 2023, though it's not yet clear if those trips were linked to the plot. Lisa Carton reports.
Investigators said while U.S. Army veteran Shamsuddin Jabbar likely acted alone, they're still trying to determine if he met with anyone while he was abroad and if the trips were connected to the attack. Jabbar also reportedly traveled to New Orleans twice before the attack and took video along Bourbon Street. In the hours before, authorities also say he placed multiple improvised explosives around the city and set a fire inside the home he was renting nearby. The attack killed 14 people, and Jabbar died in a shootout with police after he opened fire on them and the crowd. I'm Lisa Carton.
Monday marks 4 years since the January 6th riots in Washington, D.C., when supporters of then-election-losing President Donald Trump stormed the Capitol trying to stop a transfer of power being formalized in Congress. The events led to the deaths of 5 people, including a police officer. And at the movies, Mufasa the Lion King has taken the lead at the box office in the first weekend of the new year. Scott Carr has the details.
The prequel to Disney's Lion King earned over $7 million just on Friday and is now among the top 15 earners of all the domestic releases of 2024.
The circle is broken. There will be one Lion King.
As Sonic the Hedgehog 3 slows down to second place but has surpassed $170 million in North America. A 4th installment of the Sonic franchise is already underway at Paramount, as Wicked continues to draw crowds, now with a shot at reaching the $450 million mark domestically. I'm Scott Carr.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. Give us a call. Let us know what's on your mind. The phone number is 603-283-6160 to call and get your thoughts on the air. And tonight in the studio, you've got me, Stu.
Riley.
And Richie Rich.
And just now we were talking about baby food labeling in California for heavy metals. But right now, we've got a caller on the line, and we're going to go to David in New Mexico. David, what's on your mind?
Money. Money, 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 money.
Ah, the medium of exchange.
Yeah, well. Yeah,
is it ideal
it is,
money? That's the real question.
I don't care what it is. Just give it to me.
Do you want us to put it in your Speedo? Is that how you accept it?
Yeah, that's how I get that bulge in there. I put a roll of quarters in there.
All right.
When I'm down in the French Quarter, when I'm working at the transsexual strip club there.
I've seen a roll of quarters, Dave. I don't think you're impressing anyone with a roll of quarters
yeah.
as your Speedo bulge.
Yeah. Well, they pay me because it's kind of a freak show kind of thing, you know.
Oh, okay.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard a chick go like, "Man, it was as big as a roll of quarters."
Yeah, it doesn't seem like.
Well,
it's more like
you know,
it was only as big as a roll of quarters.
It's actually Nolans and quarter, and it ain't chicks there, Richie Rich, that interested in my roll of quarter.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for letting us know.
See how that works there, Richie?
I've never heard a dude go, it was as big as a roll of quarters. It's more like, it was just a roll of quarters.
Them dudes that go for dudes, man, they go for anything, man. They ain't particular.
I don't know about that.
I do.
I'll bet you do.
I do. Well, how much you want to bet? I win that bet.
I'm on your side. I'll bet you do. If anyone would know what other dudes go for, Dave, it would probably be you.
Definitely be me. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it doesn't seem smart to bet with David on what David knows or not.
Right.
Know.
Yep. Wait a minute. How did that logic go? Tell me that logic again, there, Stewie.
Seems like a bad choice to bet with David on something about something that David knows or doesn't know.
Yes, I would agree with that. But why do you say that, Stu?
Well, just because the results are dependent solely on David.
That's right.
Who's got a vested interest in the outcome of the bet?
That's right. Kind of skews the incentive there, doesn't it?
It does.
Oh man, y'all lost me, man. Getting too deep in here, man. For a transsexual
really
from the quarter.
Seemed like a really basic syllogism logistically.
How are things?
Yeah, well, what do you expect from a transsexual stripper from the quarter?
from the speaking of the quarter, how's it going out there in Trailer Park Alley? How's the Triple Y or the Pentagon trailer project coming?
It is now 6 times as wide as what normal trailer trash live in. 6 times as wide.
So hexagon.
Not
hexagon?
6 times as wide. Not 6 times as wide. 6 times as wide.
Are they circling them, or like circling the wagons, or are they just like?
That would be cool. And the Mexicans ain't cool, man. They're just dumb.
It would be a whole lot smarter. It would be a whole lot smarter.
It's not racist at all.
Especially with.
It looks like a train derailment.
One's tipped over.
No.
It's got Dos Equis spilling out of it.
The one to tip over. The one to tip over. That's over there. That one over there. That one over there tip over.
No one can see where you're pointing.
I can't see anything.
Nice.
Well, you're supposed to use your imagination. You don't got no imagination.
Oh, I have an imagination, all right. I'm just not understanding what you're getting at.
Must be the one over by the wash.
Yeah, Yeah,
over there. No, out here it's not no wash. That's what. Matter of fact, the New Mexican friend of mine, he said, I think you gringos say a wash. It's a arroyo.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so that ain't the only one to tip over. The one that right next to it over here, this lady, hers tip over, and she was inside of it when it tip over.
Oh goodness.
That
was fun.
Fat chick walked too far to the left.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty skinny, man. No matter what side she on, it ain't gonna hold it down.
Everyone to the right side of the bus.
Yeah.
Is that how politics works?
No, it's seen from Speed.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, you're missing out. Great movie.
No. That's Speed. I remember when that movie came out.
Keanu Reeves, Sandra Bullock.
Sandra Bullock, she's okay, except she's a chain smoker. But
really, that's unfortunate.
My what?
I said, really, that's unfortunate.
Yes, that's unfortunate. That's what Jesse James said. Speaking of Jesse James, you want to hear about Billy the Kid?
Again?
Yeah, sure. Again.
Okay.
More interested. No, I don't want to.
I don't know. I thought you said you wanted to talk about money.
And here you are rambling about nonsense.
Everything's money. Everything's money. We've been talking about money. Everything is money. If I try and name something that ain't money.
Okay. I mean, again, I hear your point. You can barter with anything, so fine.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, the Jet last night, I didn't hear the entire program, but I did hear part of Jet's call. Did he mention anything about what I asked him about his secret money-making formula that he is writing down in the form of an algorithm and going to sell? Well, he's at least going to use it himself, but maybe he's going to sell it.
Nope, not a word about that. And in
No.
fact, I totally forgot that was a question you
damn
had
it.
for him.
Okay, so how about you guys then? Since we ain't got no highly intelligent jet money making material, what about you guys? How do you make money in the market?
Like the stock market?
Any market, stock market, cow market. Well, stock market, yeah, livestock or paper stock, your choice. Mhm.
Insider trading.
Yep.
Well, yeah, that you can do that. You're onto something there because they got the copy trading. You can go right on the internet right now and you can find all of Nancy Pelosi's trades and you can trade her trades.
Like almost
Yeah.
the entire market structure is speculative, right? And people are betting on whether or not they know more than the other bettors in the marketplace. And much like we wouldn't place a bet where on David, where the outcome of the bet is determined by David's knowledge of a thing, right? If you know more than the other bettors, then you have a better chance of like achieving that outcome in the market. It's the surest way to make money in that system. Because everything else, if everyone has equal information, then nobody knows, and it's just a guess. And you guess right sometimes, and you guess wrong sometimes, and other people agree with you sometimes, they don't agree with you other times, and everything fluctuates. But if you know something that's going to be, either beneficial or harmful to the market, and you're allowed to like pre-bet by getting in there before the information is released, right? Then you have the opportunity to make a lot of money.
This is one thing that
Okay,
always kind
so
of
how do you-
confused me about the whole thing of insider trading as being a criminal charge, because it's like all these types of trades happen on some kind of an informed choice. And so like what level of information do you have to cross in order for that to be inside trading?
The inequality of information. That's the thing. The presumption is that everyone is trading with equal information, and that makes it fair. And if you have knowledge that other people don't have, that gives you an advantage in that trade that other people aren't able to take advantage of. And so that's why it's wrong.
Yeah,
it
but
unbalances the scales of equality.
But by that definition, like, if you really want to take that to its logical conclusion, then they didn't, notify me personally. They didn't make an attempt to. They didn't email me about, the next market move that everybody else was aware of, and so I got left behind. And that's therefore everybody who traded on that is now guilty of insider trading, kind of a thing.
Well, it's the availability of the information. If you didn't seek it out, they're not required to give it to you. But again, the insider part is like, we know we're going to release a new product. It's leaps and bounds ahead of what our competitors can currently do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell you that, hey, dude, this product is going to be like the next big thing. You should buy now because our stock is going to skyrocket, right?
Yeah.
Now you have information that the rest of the market doesn't. You buy in low, the price starts to go up as that information matriculates throughout the market, but you got in low and everybody else got in higher up. And so
Yeah.
you make a bigger profit.
I see what it's trying to prevent, but I guess the line where you draw it gets a little foggy in my opinion.
Okay.
But yeah, insider trading, like when you know something,
Or you
like
can pump and dump a
9/11
cryptocurrency.
like something when you know 9/11's going to happen, and so you just dump a bunch of Delta stock right before.
Yeah. Nobody else knows that it's going to happen, and you do,
Oh.
and you can make a move ahead of time, right? You dump all your stock or you short it or whatever,
Mhm.
right? And then as the market figures it out and go, like, oh man, that was a Delta flight, and it starts to crash, you're already out. You've reaped the profits at a high mark while everyone else is trying to get out as it's dropping down.
Yep.
It's the same idea.
Yeah. So and
Okay,
that's what it
so
intends to
how
prevent, but doesn't seem like it does.
How do
very well.
you and I, Richie? How do you and I capitalize on this?
I think you had it right earlier. Like, I don't understand why people don't look at the politicians who are making bank in the market and just, piggyback their trades.
Yeah, Paul Pelosi's trading portfolio is a good one to copy if you want to do copy trading.
Right. I don't know what the time delay on their trades are, but if they're making trades and you have relatively instant access to it, then you're either going to be in when they're in, or close enough to that ramp up that you won't be as profitable as they are, but you'll get in early enough to reap the benefits that they'll reap later on.
Okay, yeah, I have seen services where they do copy trades of politicians. So you can you can get your information from those services, whether by paying money for the information provided by these people who gather this information. How about well, let me stop there. Let me start there.
I mean, if you're like trading with Nancy Pelosi, right? She's turned $175,000 salary into multi-million dollars over the course of a political career, right? And even if you were slightly behind her on the timing, but still on the right side of the curve, you might not be like a 10 millionaire, but you might be like a 6 millionaire. Mm-hmm. Right. Even if you're close to like 50% of where she was at as far as the timing, seems like a decent strategy to me.
And then there's also, and I'm sure you already know about it, and I don't condone this activity. I view it as borderline immoral, but they have what is known as pump and dump groups that you can buy into, and these guys will tell you which coin they're secretly loading up on, and then they have a day they all decided they're gonna just buy the heck out of it and drive the price up, and then sell to the
the Hawk Tuah token.
Fools.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah.
And people willingly bought it, so I mean,
stupid people willingly bought it.
Yeah.
In addition to she got some egg on her face. Maybe that's what everybody been seeing. There was an egg on her face, not the other.
Yeah, maybe.
But
yeah. Thank you very much. Eat all week. Try the veal. Isn't that how that goes?
I probably won't try the veal.
So the pump and dump. Now how about, that brings, you can find those pump and dumps like in WhatsApp. There are groups in WhatsApp and Telegram. And then,
I would imagine.
Where else did I see them? But you could Pardon?
I've never tried to join one, so I don't know where to find them. I just know they exist.
Yeah. Well, you could also do it on your own. You could do a poor man or a poorer man's pump and dump. You could look at the history of free stock scanners. Look at the chart history, and look back a reliable distance, like a year or 2 or 3, and look at the cycles of these. Penny stocks are better to play with for doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because there is more volatility, more movement, and there are pumpers and dumpers that are regularly pumping them and dumping them, and they're doing them in predictable cycles. And so I have noticed you can look back and see what the frequency of these cycles are and what the amplitude is from high to low. And I have speculated that just by buying and holding, hodling these penny stocks, meaning literally like a stock that sells for 2 cents. You could buy, $2,000 worth of 2 cent stock, have a lot of shares, and when it goes from 2 cents to like 35 cents, which they do, in a matter of a couple of days, as long as you have determined that there is enough volume and float, I think they call it liquidity, whatever, so that you don't get trapped in the stock while the whales get out and sell. As long as there is enough room there for you to sell along with the whales, when you have set yourself a price alert that this stock is now on the rise, and so probably best to not even wait till it gets to the top of the predicted amplitude. Probably sell when you hit like halfway the distance you think it's going to go, and then
I mean, I think what you're describing is just like trend analysis, right? How has this performed in the past, and if it follows a predictable trend, right, then you can speculate on where it's going to end up in the future. I knew a guy who was like, we were talking about this with Doge before Elon found it, right? So this was a long time ago with Doge, and I was like, it's just a meme coin. It's like the third ever cryptocurrency, and it's there just to make fun of the other two.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, but you can still make money. I'm like, yeah, I bet you can. He's like, I'll prove it to you. And at the time, Doge was like 0.0, like all the zeros you can, and then like 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He's like, the loss on this is so minimal because it can only go down like 0.00002, right, before it hits absolute nothing. But the upside is unlimited, right? So it's like, well, I'll just buy like $10,000 of this, and if it hits, $1 or even a penny, right, he makes like 1,000 times his money.
Yep.
Right. So if you can find one of those that are really, really low, and there's no chance of losing all that much money because you're so close to the bottom, and you get lucky.
There is no bottom. There is no bottom, Richie. The bottom is losing all of your money because you can go because numbers go infinitely in both directions. So if you're at point 0.000000003, it can go to infinity lower.
No, it can't because the coin.
Can.
No, it can't.
Yes, it can.
Mute him, please.
Hang on a second.
It can't because the maximum amount of decimals for the coin is only like 8, right? So if you have 0.0703, it can only go down to 0.070 and a 1 before it hits absolute 0, and then you're out your whatever you put into it. So it's not like it can infinitely fractionalize, right? Even Bitcoin itself only has 8 decimal points, and that lowest decimal point is like a Satoshi. That's what they've deemed it to be. The crowd has come together, and they said 0.0000001 Bitcoin is like a Satoshi. And then the more Bitcoin goes up in price, the more people are talking about Satoshis or sats than anything else. So there's a finite bottom because it only goes to 0. Now you can lose money by shorting it, right? If you decide to go like the short route, then you can lose infinite money. But that's not because it goes down to 0 or beyond that. It's because you owe people money.
Here, one coin that basically lost all of its value was known as Luna or Terra.
Okay.
And this pretty much died. I think it was last year, but they had a major bug that messed up their whole chain, so it pretty much died. But it's still trading for 50 cents.
Okay. but
it's down 97% from.
But the programming itself has like a finite number of zeros on that side of the decimal place. David is saying no, it goes to infinity. And that's not true.
Which, as you're explaining, Richie, isn't possible.
Which is factually wrong unless it's programmed that way. And Doge was not programmed that way. Bitcoin is not programmed that way. Well, I don't know how many of them are programmed with an infinite number of decimals, but it's not true.
So, but one Satoshi, though, could trade for like such a small fraction of 1 penny. That
it does, and it did. When Bitcoin was like 3 cents a Bitcoin,
right?
Like 1 Satoshi was like, I think fractionally down from that.
That's the 0, I think, that he says it can't really.
No, he's saying there's infinite zeros on that side of the decimal point.
Let's ask David. David, did that make sense to you? And which one of those, or neither position, were you trying to take?
Okay, mute him, please. And my response to that is it is a practical infinity, because if you buy $10,000 worth of 1/1000th of a penny altcoin, you can still lose all 10,000. You still are holding your position, so if it comes back, you can get some of your money back.
But that's still a maximum loss of 10,000, right?
You can't lose 20,000.
You can't lose 20,000.
Can you mute him, please? Maximum loss of all of your money that you put into it. So it's kind of a moot point whether. Whether
you were the one arguing it like a jackass.
Well, hee-haw. Oh, guilty. You got me. Busted. So,
you can lose infinite money because of the infinite decimals. Like, no, there's a finite decimals and finite money how you put in. Yeah. The only way you lose infinite money is by shorting, because then you owe a lot more and can continue to owe ad infinitum as you lose more money.
Position, though, it has to be, you got to have deposits to back it, and it will just automatically liquidate if you fall below a certain level of, I forgot what they call it, but they'll automatically close your position if you get in danger of not being able to pay them back.
Well, that is a courtesy on their part.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
I've never had a position liquidated, but I haven't heard of people that have had devastating losses in liquidated positions.
What positions do you have experience with, Stu?
Say
I'm
again?
not, and this is not a joke.
Doggy style.
I'm not making a strip club joke here. What positions?
Doggy style is kind of fun.
What do you say?
Long and short, which I've placed both long and short orders on crypto exchanges before, just to find out how it works.
Okay. Yeah, and how did that? And by the way, first of all, because I cannot resist, mute the blind guy. because then he will be blind and mute and take his headphones. And then he'll be deaf, dumb, and blind and give him a pinball machine.
What would I do with a pinball machine?
You'd be the wizard.
Listen to the Who.
That deaf, dumb, and blind kid sure plays a mean pinball.
That's what I hear.
Yeah. So how did how did that all work out then, Stu?
For me, not profitable. It was
Okay,
it was an experience that I paid for, and I feel like I got the value of learning a few lessons.
Okay. Have you gone to the level where you've studied the price action, the previous price action of
Yes.
the?
I've gone to
you
all
did.
levels of this, yes. Yes, I went
And that
all
did-
the way to the bottom of that rabbit hole and crawled right back out.
Now, how about seeking professional help? And once again, I'm not making a joke. I'm not calling you crazy. But did you seek professional help by buying the assistance of people with decades of experience in trading markets who were focusing on certain products?
No, I like to do everything myself. I'm kind of a glutton for punishment
That might be the
way.
problem. That might be the problem.
It might be.
Well, who would you
Yeah,
trust? Right, there's plenty of self-imposed experts on any number of subjects available on
about
YouTube
guys-
and the internet.
That's
Okay,
right.
to answer that question, how about guys that have worked in for instance, if you're talking about stocks and options, how about guys that have worked in the stock exchange for an entire career and are now on a second career where they're taking their experience and trading with, selling their service professionally to people like you and me who want to benefit from it.
I mean, if that's what you want to do, just find a wealth manager. Those services already exist. They will take your money and invest it with their expertise, and hopefully they
they're
make
not-
wise choices.
Okay, but they're not doing the same thing. Wealth managers are shooting for a return of, 20 to 30% a year, and as a trader, you're trying to make 20 or 30% a day.
Okay.
Yeah, so for me personally, I figured out the strategy is to just hold BTC, but if you're trying to get your number to go up. But for me, unfortunately, I've always lived on such thin margins that I've never been able to have what people refer to as a nest egg or a savings. It just gets spent.
Yeah, and you could be a day trader and outperform, but now you just have a job.
That's right. Thanks for the call, David. This has been Free Talk Live. You can catch more of us on Saturday. Thanks for listening. Peace.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way.
You can do that and you have to leave here. You cannot bring signs into the rally.
Walk with me. Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa, Hey. Who do you think you are? Excuse me.
There is no video and audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today.
You ain't gonna make it.
Wait a minute. Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Why are you running from me? Because you scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Coming up next after the news, hour one of the latest episode of Free Talk Live here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher. More than 70 million Americans are under winter weather alerts as a huge winter storm is forecast to bring the heaviest snowfall and coldest temperatures in over a decade. Much of Canada and 30 US states from Kansas to the East Coast are affected, according to the National Weather Service. Snowfall of 6 to 12 inches is expected from Ohio to Washington, D.C. States unaccustomed to severe cold, including Mississippi, Texas and Florida, are expecting freezing conditions. Forecasters say it's being caused by the polar vortex, an area of cold air that circulates around the Arctic, sweeping down through Canada. The man who drove a pickup truck into a crowd in New Orleans on New Year's Day had visited the city twice in the months before the attack, according to the FBI. Shamsuddin Jabbar also travelled to Egypt and Canada in 2023, though it's not yet clear if those trips were linked to the plot. Lisa Carton reports.
Investigators said while U.S. Army veteran Shamsuddin Jabbar likely acted alone, they're still trying to determine if he met with anyone while he was abroad and if the trips were connected to the attack. Jabbar also reportedly traveled to New Orleans twice before the attack and took video along Bourbon Street. In the hours before, authorities also say he placed multiple improvised explosives around the city and set a fire inside the home he was renting nearby. The attack killed 14 people, and Jabbar died in a shootout with police after he opened fire on them and the crowd. I'm Lisa Carton.
Monday marks 4 years since the January 6th riots in Washington, D.C., when supporters of then-election-losing President Donald Trump stormed the Capitol trying to stop a transfer of power being formalized in Congress. The events led to the deaths of 5 people, including a police officer. And at the movies, Mufasa the Lion King has taken the lead at the box office in the first weekend of the new year. Scott Carr has the details.
The prequel to Disney's Lion King earned over $7 million just on Friday and is now among the top 15 earners of all the domestic releases of 2024.
The circle is broken. There will be one Lion King.
As Sonic the Hedgehog 3 slows down to second place but has surpassed $170 million in North America. A fourth installment of the Sonic franchise is already underway at Paramount, as Wicked continues to draw crowds, now with a shot at reaching the $450 million mark domestically. I'm Scott Carr.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, growing frustration in Europe over Elon Musk's continuing interference in the continent's affairs. Over the weekend, he kept up a blitz of messages over his social media platform, targeting the government of Keir Starmer in Britain for more criticism, even going after a politician long considered a Musk ally, Nigel Farage of Reform UK. He's also sown chaos in Germany, where the richest man in the world is aggressively promoting the far-right AfD in next month's elections. How should European governments respond?
It's a very hard question to answer because there's almost no precedent for it.
Arthur Snell is a former British diplomat and host of the podcast Behind the Lines.
We've certainly got lots of case studies of countries where we have bad relations being perfectly prepared to, say disobliging things about us. But Musk is, let's not forget, he's got a government role. He might be the richest man in the world and everyone knows he's a big businessman, but he's got his own role in Trump's government, the Department of Government Efficiency. We've seen lots of people in this country already say that Keir Starmer or someone in the UK government needs to formally respond. The issue there is that no one wants to annoy Trump in the phase where Musk appears to be right inside his inner circle.
How long will the bromance between Trump and Musk last? We don't know, but it must definitely be coming under strain. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
Our main news again. More than 70 million Americans are under winter weather alerts as a huge winter storm is forecast to bring the heaviest snowfall and coldest temperatures in over a decade. The man who drove a pickup truck into a crowd in New Orleans on New Year's Day had visited the city twice in the months before the attack, according to the FBI. And Monday marks 4 years since the January 6th riots in Washington, D.C. And that's the latest feature story news. Kate Fisher reporting.
Following today's press conference in which NASA announced its continuing search for a planet capable of supporting NASA, researcher Dr. Kenneth Heiser sat down with Onion reporters to detail their ongoing mission to find a NASA habitable planet.
Our objective is to find a planet capable of nurturing not just life, but also a sustained interest in the exploration of the cosmos. Such a planet would need to have water and proximity to light and heat, but also life forms with even the vaguest understanding of the importance of astronomical exploration. Ultimately, this would need to be a planet with organisms that have a genuine interest in expanding the limits of their knowledge.
Heiser added that any planet capable of supporting NASA would need to be able to generate a steady stream of financing to meet the agency's $18 billion annual budget.
The important thing is we just need to be patient. There's a limitless number of planets in the universe, and eventually we'll find one with the resources to support our work. We just have to, right?
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. That means that you can call in and bring up whatever is on your mind. You can change the subject if there's some kind of news you think people need to hear about, if you just have an opinion, if you think we're wrong. It's up to you. You can call in and talk about whatever you want because it's Free Talk Live. And with you on the show tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Stu, and Riley.
And we were going to talk about, actually, oddly enough, a couple different weed-related or marijuana, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, related stories here tonight. And one of them is New Hampshire centric, but wow, I hate to even cover really